America fame and fortune. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 26 Beautiful Waves. The tall brown horse was replaced with a special saddle. Carrying the weight of 2 people made it a little uneasy. Martin comforted the horse and held the supporting actress in his arms. Catherine had dazzling blonde hair. She was the second female lead in the film, so her appearance and figure were naturally good. "Will you not fall off?" she asked in a low voice. Martin comforted, "Don't worry, I'm a first-class rider." Director Benjamin asked loudly, "Martin, is it okay?" Martin gave him a thumbs up, "No problem." With the director's order, the shooting officially began. The main focus was on shooting the panoramic and beautiful shots of the 2 characters riding together. After shooting a few shots intermittently, Martin put on makeup again and started shooting. Martin kept the horse trotting at a constant speed. The artistic atmosphere on the set was instantly high-end, as if it was Cannes and Venice. The artistic circus designed by Benjamin was far more than that. The prop fake horse was pushed into the set, and Martin and Catherine changed from the real horse to the fake horse. The fake horse was galloping, and the people were galloping. Martin had to finish the role he had snatched with great effort, even with tears in his eyes. After many attempts, Martin was strong and healthy, but Catherine was almost vomiting due to the bumps on the horse. Finally, the shooting was completed. Benjamin's attitude towards Martin today was obviously closer than yesterday. He came over and asked, "How is it?" Martin lost no time to praise, "Director, you are really a genius. You designed Marzendo. The fans will definitely worship you and shout God. How can an artist be serious?" Benjamin shook his big beard and laughed, "Worship me, I found a good actor." Martin joked seriously, "Director, I'm your admirer now. My passion for worshipping you can detonate the earth. In order to protect all mankind, I have to do something meaningful to prevent you from plotting against the earth." Benjamin casually handed him a business card. "This is my classmate from Savannah College of Art. She is currently a director, producer, and actress in the Sacred Valley. If you are interested, you can call her." Martin said he didn't know her and was helpless. "Director, I'm an actor, a serious actor. Circus is a very serious play, beautiful, romantic, and full of artistic atmosphere. Anyone who makes random associations must have an unhealthy brain and should quickly commit self-destruction." In the rest area on the other side, the male lead Adam Smith held a newspaper from last week and read the news about the conflict between the Free Association and the Methodist Association. In one of the pictures, Martin Davis of the House of the Beast was interviewed by a media reporter. Adam Smith had a bad feeling. Is this really someone who is content to be a minor supporting role? Those who can get to the top either have someone behind them or someone in front of them. When he saw the door of the makeup trailer open and Martin, who had just finished removing his makeup, approached, he stood up and took 2 steps forward. "Hello, Martin, a wonderful performance." "Thank you." Martin smiled politely. "I saw your play yesterday. Your acting was superb and charming." Adam Smith said, "It's just that I have filmed more plays and gained more experience." Martin replied, "In this line of work, experience and talent are indispensable." Adam Smith said, "I have formed an actor club in Atlanta. If you want to join, just give me a written application and we will discuss acting together in the future." Martin heard the meaning and smiled and said, "After I finish this play." Adam Smith nodded slightly and said no more. Martin joined Robert, who was waiting in the rest area. Robert returned the gun bag and several other items to Martin and said, "You are just short of having hypocrisy written on your face." Martin walked towards the temporary financial office of the crew. "It's not that simple." Adam Smith hinted that I should follow him and be his younger brother. Robert followed him. He is the male lead. Martin also wanted to be the male lead and deliberately asked Robert, "Is there any good way to let me be the male lead in the next Grey Company play?" "Damn it, how can I have a way? I'm just an extra." Robert was stunned by the question. "I can't even handle a line." Martin looked around and saw that there was no one around, so he said, "You easily got rid of that idiot yesterday. Robert looked up at the sky speechlessly and emphasized again, that was his stupidity. It has nothing to do with me, I swear. Martin, you have to believe me. You must believe me. Martin said casually, no need to swear, I believe it. Isn't it enough for me to believe it? After signing for today's salary in the financial office, Martin had finished filming all his scenes and could leave the crew on his own. Before leaving, he talked to Andrew for a while. Andrew was in a very good mood. His salary at Gray's company was upgraded by one level, and he could also receive a subsidy from the Freedom Club as an external employee. After the filming of this play, the relationship between the two became closer, and Andrew took the initiative to talk about an important news. A Hollywood film crew passed the state government's tax refund audit and will move from Los Angeles to Atlanta next month to shoot the remaining scenes. He got the news from Kelly Gray's assistant Ella. It's a big production with an investment of $20 million and the male and female protagonists are Jim Carrey and Kate Winslet respectively. Martin had heard Jerome talk about this before and asked, is it confirmed? Andrew knew much more than Martin. A production manager of the crew is also one of the investors. He is a friend of the boss in Los Angeles. The company will cooperate with them to assist them in filming in Atlanta. Martin understood what he meant. Will some roles of the crew be recruited in Atlanta? Andrew nodded. They left Los Angeles, not only because of the tax refund, but also because of the cheap labor in Atlanta and the state government's subsidies. Martin invited Kelly Gray to drink last time and heard her mention her friends in Los Angeles. Could it be this? After saying goodbye to Andrew, Martin left the crew's residence and called Jerome at the door. After he came, he found the prepared $200. Captain, the remaining membership fee. Jerome put it away and said, there are not many people like you who pay back the money on time. Martin said, my character is always guaranteed. Jerome quite agreed. Some people who claim to be friends owe money and disappear from then on. Martin has also encountered such scumbags should be sent to the South City and handed over to the old blacks. Jerome packed the money and prepared to leave and did not forget to remind, next month's membership fee is about to be paid. I made a lot of money this time. I don't need to delay it, right? Although he met Benjamin, Kelly Gray and Andrew, it also proved from the side that Jerome was indeed well informed. Martin did not want to give up this line of him at this stage. No problem. Back in Atlanta, Martin went to work at the club on time in the evening. Vincent went out tonight and asked Bruce to keep an eye on the place. Vincent left the club and drove out of Atlanta alone to Savannah in the east. This is the largest port city in Georgia. Vincent met an unusually strong woman in a private club. Sophia, can't you talk on the phone? Vincent sat opposite the woman. The phone is not safe. Sophia didn't say anything and went straight to the point. Your business has been booming recently and the number of customers has increased dramatically. How many more accounts can you do every week? Vincent thought for a moment and said, $250,000. The customers of the Beast House basically consume in cash. With a large number of customers, people come in and out, and it is easier to do accounts. Sophia said, $400,000. Vincent was embarrassed. I will try my best. This requires increasing customer flow, but it is necessary. The club is completely under his control. Compared with other channels, Vincent trusts himself more. At least his share will not have any problems. Chapter 27 What is easily obtained is not worthwhile. On the weekend, Carter and his sister gathered in the living room. Elena screwed up the cocktail shaker and started shaking it at a steady speed. Martin reminded her of the precautions. It takes a little longer so that the wine and ice cubes are fully in contact. When using a martini glass, the glass must be chilled. Elena took the glass from the ice, unscrewed the cocktail shaker, and poured in the prepared Manhattan cocktail. The last step is to add cherries as garnish. Elena couldn't find it. Where are my cherries? On the sofa. Lily secretly hid the bowl behind her and said, Elena, I accidentally ate all the cherries. Don't you still have some? Paul, take off your stinky socks. Martin turned around and said, stuff it into the idiot Lily's broken mouth. Lily got up and ran to the room. Paul took off his socks and chased after her. Martin ignored the pair of idiots and said to Elena, Manhattan is known as the queen of cocktails. It is relatively simple to mix. There are multiple versions. The taste is determined by the base liquor. You should practice more. Elena nodded. For the damn money, I will stick to it. Martin's cell phone rang, and he walked aside to answer the call. It was Vincent who called and asked him to go to the club as soon as possible. Elena waited for him to hang up the phone and said, "You have something to do. I will remember the recipe you wrote down first." Martin put his cell phone in his pocket and touched a ball of paper. It turned out to be a lottery ticket. He asked, "Did you win the prize last time?" Elena shook her head. "We were unlucky." Harris came out of the room to go to the bathroom. Seeing the bottles and utensils placed in the living room, he stopped and said, "My injury is 50% healed, and I can go out to make money." Elena rejected it. "You should heal your injury first, and keep the money you earned last time. Also, keep your mouth shut, and don't let Scott know." The club was deserted during the day. After Martin arrived, he went directly to the second floor, and came to Vincent's office. Vincent raised the brim of his cowboy hat, his hooked nose facing the door. "Sit anywhere." Martin sat on the single sofa and asked, "Boss?" Vincent said, "The club's customer flow and income have been relatively stable recently. You have done a good job." The word stable may not be a compliment. Martin thought for a while and said, "With the help of the ATL Free Association, we have sued the Methodist Association. There have been related reports in liberal newspapers. The current customer flow can be maintained for a long time." Vincent ignored what Martin said. "Do you have any new ideas for management?" Martin told the truth. "Boss, I don't know how to manage." Needless to say, his predecessor spent most of his time on drifting. Vincent nodded slightly. "I want to increase the club's performance by another 1/3. What do you think?" Hearing this, Martin knew that the opportunity he had been waiting for had come. But it is not easy to cut the boss's leaks. First of all, let the boss cut leaks from other places. I think there are only two aspects. Martin had an idea a long time ago, but he would not say it, because things that are easily obtained are not valuable. He talked about it in general terms, increasing the ticket revenue from the flow of customers, and increasing the club's merchandise revenue. In fact, he had considered both aspects, especially the latter, which was very suitable for the unique taste of free women. Vincent was a little disappointed, but thinking of the commotion Martin had caused last time, he asked, "Haven't you considered it before?" "I've been busy suing the Methodist Association." Martin said, "I'll think about it carefully." Vincent stared at Martin for a while, and saw him frowning and thinking hard, and sighed secretly. Vincent still knew how to motivate people, especially to motivate his younger brothers before opening a club. Empty words were useless. He said directly, "A $10,000 bonus." The number was very tempting, but Martin still thought hard and said, "Boss, I'll come to you again when I think of a way." Vincent waved his hand and let Martin leave. Martin went downstairs. $10,000 was not a small amount. If he got it, he wouldn't fail in selling unique merchandise and become a pauper. Vincent then met a few smart people in the club. Bruce, the idiot, suggested posting hearts posters everywhere, and Blondie suggested introducing flower. The last one to come up was Hart. This guy said, "Leave it to Martin Daddy." Vincent almost broke down and hit him on the head with an ashtray. Hit him from top to bottom. Vincent was helpless. Most of the truly smart or knowledgeable people these days go into legitimate industries. It was almost 6 o'clock and the club was about to open. Bruce was wiping the bar and asked Martin, "Have you thought of a solution?" Martin shook his head. "God is a black man." Bruce said, "I think it's a good idea to print Hart's photo on taxi ads and post it everywhere." Martin asked, "Did the boss agree? Did he give you a bonus?" "Treat us, old Bruce." Bruce pointed to the stage. "Let your idiot sons Hart and Carrington wear wigs and prostheses to accompany you." "Damn it, I said I only want daughters, not sons." Martin raised his middle finger. "Keep it for yourself." Bruce suddenly asked, "When will the play you shot be broadcast?" Martin specifically asked Andrew and said, "Next Saturday night at 10:30, cable 2. Just then, Hart and Carrington came out with a handsome men's group to set up the stage. Bruce shouted, "Guys, our idiot actor's first play will be broadcast next week. Don't miss it." There was a lot of booing from the handsome men's group. Martin thought to himself, "If you can find me, I lose." As the club opened, a large number of female customers entered and everyone got busy. Since Martin first came to the club, there have been very few male customers in the club. After all, gays have their own professional places. After the media hype, male customers are almost extinct. After working until 10 o'clock, Martin said hello to Bruce and left the club early. He did not go far away, but took a can of beer and stood on the street, observing the black bar opposite. The customer group is female. At this time, there are more customers coming out than going in. Ivan asked the golden retriever to watch the door and came over and asked, "Are you going to take action against those bastards?" Martin took out another can of beer in his pocket and threw it to Ivan. "How much hatred?" Ivan opened the beer, took a big sip, and said with his teeth bared, "I'm an Eastern European immigrant. My whole family has been discriminated against and oppressed by them since I came here. This group of blacks." Martin said, "Don't say some things casually, it will cause trouble." Ivan just smiled. Martin chatted with Ivan from time to time, but his eyes were not idle. He always stared at the female customers coming out of the club and watched them leave. Female customers came out of the Beast House one after another, just like what Martin had seen several times before. Some of them did not go home, but went to the black club across the street. The opposite side did not charge women tickets. They could enter for free and then continue to drink. Martin threw away the beer can, touched his pocket to make sure he had money, crossed the road, and came to the door of the black bar. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 28. It's really deadly. The black bar discriminated against men and charged a $15 entrance fee. Martin paid the money, entered the bar, went to the bar counter, and ordered a beer, and quickly scanned the whole place. The business area is smaller than that of the Beast House, and the customers are mainly men. Many girls on the stage, and in the cage, twisted their sexy bodies to the accompaniment of hip-hop music. "Hi, handsome guy." Suddenly a woman came over to chat with him, pointed at Martin, and said to the bartender, "Give him a Long Island iced tea cocktail. It's my treat." After ordering the drink, the woman looked at Martin carefully and felt familiar. Then she thought again, "It's you? Why are you here?" Martin recognized this woman. He ordered cocktails at the Beast House tonight and responded casually, "Come and taste other people's wine and learn from their advantages." The woman grabbed Martin's arm and waved to the back. "Sisters, look, who is this?" 5 women in their 30s and 40s immediately surrounded him from behind. They have been coveting the handsome bartender at the Beast House for a long time. One of them said directly, "Handsome guy, come with us. If we really want to go." Anyone? Martin knew very well, "My work is not over yet. I will be back soon. If I leave for too long, my boss will fire me." Martin resolutely admitted his defeat, which was really fatal. They didn't have to be with Martin. Seeing Martin's firm refusal, they quickly went to flirt with other people. Martin breathed a sigh of relief and looked at the dance floor of the bar. He found that there were more than 6 female faces that he remembered. There were many. They were all doing one thing, flirting or flirting. Once they got together as a pair, they left the bar quickly. Martin finished his beer, left the black bar, crossed the road, and returned to the door of the Beast House. He called Ivan. "I remember the club ordered a batch of collar badges to give to customers for free." Ivan said, "It has arrived. It's in the warehouse." After all, what Martin saw was a minority, and more examples were needed. "Give it to customers who come in tomorrow. Let them wear it on their collars and get free beer with it. I will talk to the boss." The golden retriever was very curious. "Martin, boss, what are you going to do?" Martin just had an idea, and he had to verify whether it would work. This is not the same complicated operation as the previous one targeting the media and conservative liberals. Using a $10,000 bonus to test the grassroots people including him is irresponsible to himself and others. Martin entered the club and talked to Vincent. The badges were to be given to customers. There would be no problem in distributing them tomorrow. "Have you figured out a solution?" Vincent asked. Martin dragged it into a complicated situation. It's a vague feeling. I need to look more closely before I can grasp that feeling. Last time, Martin gave Vincent confidence. Vincent said, you can mobilize the club's manpower and resources. Compared with other channels, Vincent believes more in the club. That is completely under his control. At least he wants to ensure that there will be no problems with his share. Martin went downstairs. It was already late and customers were leaving. Bruce also had some free time and asked, have you thought of a solution? It's difficult. Martin shook his head slightly and said, are you busy during the day these days? Bruce asked, I'll collect debts in a civilized manner in the morning, and I'll have time in the afternoon. Martin nodded. Go check which tabloid is the favorite of Atlanta men, and it would be best if you can find a way to get in touch with their reporters. Hearing about the media and reporters, Bruce immediately became interested. Continue to make extra money? Martin's face was full of contempt. Old Bruce, you are a civilized person. Why do you talk about money all the time? He said in advance, I shouldn't make extra money. Bruce lost interest. I'll let you know if there is any news. After get off work at the club, as usual, Martin got into the Ford car, observed for a while and then left. In the office on the second floor, Vincent asked, what did Martin do? The golden retriever who first called Martin the boss said with a twitch of his nose, I talked to Ivan about the black man across the street and asked Ivan to stop saying racial discrimination and not to cause trouble for the club. Vincent nodded slightly. Martin, this bastard, is much better than his father. The golden retriever said. Then Martin went to the black bar and came back to tell Ivan about the collar badge. Vincent thought for a while, but had no idea, so he said, you can go home now. Report to me if there is any situation. The golden retriever replied, yes, boss. Just afternoon, Martin took the tools and prepared to work. While doing manual work, he thought of the Hollywood crew and took out his mobile phone to call Jerome. Jerome had some connections in Hollywood, so he asked Jerome to help find out who Kelly Gray's friend, the female production manager Andrew mentioned, was, and related information. Inside the house, Elena was sleeping soundly and suddenly found herself falling into a deep pit. The rotten-faced person in the pit greeted her affectionately. Hello, my dear niece. Elena woke up and sat up. Martin's broken wooden bed creaked and could fall apart at any time. Elena looked through the window and saw the backyard. She felt a gust of cold wind, so she quickly found Martin's shirt and put it on and left the living room. She came to the door and leaned on the door frame. She found Martin holding a handsaw and sawing wood in the yard. She asked, idiot, what are you doing? Martin wiped his sweat and said, the wooden bed is about to fall apart and needs to be reinforced. Elena found that the wood looked familiar and asked, where did you get it from? Martin continued to work. The fences in the church cemetery are too dense, which is not conducive to thieves stealing graves. I'm a good person and helped to dismantle some of them. The Carter family was used to doing this, and Elena didn't care, but Martin's clumsy look made her frown. You look like a waste when you do it by hand. Not as good as Lily and Hall. Lily came back early this afternoone. Let her help you? Hearing Lily, Martin thought of that broken mouth and shook his head. Guess what idiot Lily will say when she comes? He imitated Lily's tone. Wow, Martin, the hole in your bedboard, the broken bed leg, how did it break? Elena kicked out a slipper. Do your job, don't talk nonsense. Martin threw away the handsaw, brushed off the sawdust on his hands, and pulled Elena inside. Okay, no more nonsense, get to work. The two drove out in the afternoon. Elena was going to help at the Methodist church and get free food. Martin asked, is there any problem over there? Elena knew what Martin was asking. The two sides are mortal enemies. When this side marches and demonstrates, the other side will follow immediately. No one thinks that a poor and useless person like me can do anything. She took out her chastity ring and put it on. The aura just now disappeared. Put me down far away later. Don't let those idiots see you. Martin hadn't put Elena down yet when he received a call from Bruce saying that things were going well. Come over at 4:30. Bruce reminded, the front door is blocked by municipal maintenance vehicles and there is no way to park. I left the back door for you. Come in directly when you arrive. No problem. Martin sent Alina off. It was a little early, and he was too lazy to go back, so he went directly to the backer community. The back door of Bruce's house was open, and Martin entered the house. He walked towards the living room, and heard some noise in the bedroom. He came to the master bedroom and said, "Old Bob." As he spoke, he glanced inside and quickly stepped back. "Sorry, Monica and Old Bob, I didn't see you." Chapter 29. Civilized people do things. Seeking follow-up reading. In Bruce's living room, a dirty ceiling fan rotates on the ceiling, blowing the posters of Scarlett Johansson and Jennifer Lopez. The posters are posted at a strange height, and an adult's chin is right in the middle of the posters. The portraits of the two stars are damaged, and the color of the wall is exposed below the waist and legs. Without waiting for Martin to make a careful analysis, Bruce hurried out of the bedroom with a look of dissatisfaction on his face and cursed in a low voice, "You pervert, why did you come so early? Do you know how much effort I spent to convince Monica?" Martin gave him a middle finger. "Pay attention to civilized language." Bruce looked everywhere. "Where is my gun? I'm going to shoot you, this stinky piece of shit, into pieces today." Martin said, "I have a cannon. Do you want to lend it to you?" The plump Monica came into the living room at this time and asked, "What are you talking about?" Bruce immediately changed his face, scratched his face and said, "Work." He took out a newspaper from the drawer and threw it to Martin. "This is the Atlanta Star, the largest male tabloid in Georgia." The Star started with the protest in front of the state legislature and continued to report on the conflict between the Methodist Church and the Liberal Church. It wrote many short stories. It is said that the response is good. Monica has a friend who is a freelance reporter and knows someone from the Star. Martin looked through the newspaper and found relevant reports. It is difficult to put into law, but most people can understand it. Make up a story. Of course, this kind of tabloid is not afraid of being sued, and they are eager to be sued by these well-known organizations. Martin said to Monica, "Can you contact the reporter of the Star News through your friend and do a report on the Beast House?" Monica thought of the check from last time and immediately responded, "I'll call and ask." The other side gave a positive answer. "When will it be used?" Monica asked. Martin thought for a while. "Wait 2 days, then I will let Bruce call you, and then pay you after the work is done." Monica was very satisfied with the reward last time and smiled. "No hurry." In the evening, the female customers who went to the Beast House Club for entertainment found out there was an event today. The club gave away free lapel badges. Those who wore the lapel badges could get a free beer at the bar. Most people are too lazy to take off the pin button lapel badges after wearing them, and they may think of it only when they go back to take off their clothes. Martin left the club at 9:30 in the evening and drove around all the bars and nightclubs centered on West Street. Women wearing badges can be seen in every nightclub. After leaving the Beast House, they did the same thing. While Martin was mixing drinks, he talked to a lot of female customers and had some understanding of their group. He also talked to several men. Most of them wanted to pick up girls in the nightclub, and they were free. The rest were gay. In the black bar, the owner Boyd stood on the second floor, holding the railing with both hands, watching the groups of customers pouring in from the entrance. These people wore the same collar badges, and he was very curious, which organization are these women from? The last time, the Methodist Association and the ATL Freedom Association had a chaotic battle, which left a shadow on Boyd. It was too terrible. Since then, Boyd has been a softie for several days when facing his wife Betty. Diego, a middle-aged Latin man next to him, had already paid attention. The Beast House opposite is holding an event, giving away collar badges and beer. These people were aroused by that side and came to our side to pick up people and make secondary consumption. Boyd watched for a while, and those female customers ordered drinks or other things one after another, helping the bar increase its income. He asked, "How long has this been going on?" Diego said, "It started when the Beast House was booming. As time went on, women wearing collar badges would enter the black bar from time to time." When Boyd was calm, his mind was clear. The people from the Beast House are eager to find men. The nightclub closest to the Beast House is our black bar. These people are particularly easy to hook up with, which can attract more men and bring more customers to the bar. Diego laughed. "We also got some benefits." Boyd stroked his black chin and thought seriously, "Is there a good way To attract all the customers who left the beast house to our bar, to create income for us? Or, we can add related content, to grab more female customers? Digo said, I'll think of a way. Two big butt black women came downstairs, and Boyart's black face blossomed like a chrysanthemum. Think carefully, I'll go downstairs to pick up girls. Digo could only watch the boss pick up girls, and think of ways himself. He found that most of them didn't care about black and white. Digo had an idea. He asked the boss to find a group of strong black guys from the South City to stand in front of the bar. For 3 consecutive nights, Martin was wandering around West Street and nearby bars and nightclubs. Whatever he saw or asked in person, it proved that his idea was highly feasible. Martin no longer hesitated and went to the boss Vincent. Anyway, the income would be high if it succeeded, and it would be high if it failed. Martin was a man who had experienced Marzen and dared to confront the earth. Arriving at Vincent's office on the 2nd floor, Martin said directly, Boss, I have an idea. Vincent asked, can it increase the customer flow by 1/3? It's possible. Martin did not say anything definite, but introduced the situation. The club is mainly for female customers. Atlanta's public security is average. Women are worried about their safety at night. After 10 o'clock, especially after 10:30, the number of people entering the club drops sharply, and the number of people leaving increases. Vincent knew this, and raised his cowboy hat slightly. Use after 10 o'clock. Yes. Martin said again, I contacted the media, and planned to spend money, to buy reports in the media, and also prepare new club posters. The last successful foundation was laid, and Vincent had some confidence in Martin. You go to Dana to write a check. After a while, Martin went to the finance office and asked Dana to write a few checks. The next morning, Martin found Bruce and asked him to contact Monica. Monica contacted a deputy editor of the Atlanta Star through a freelance journalist friend. The two drove to the northern city and entered a cafe. Monica and her freelance journalist friend were waiting. Martin asked a few questions, took out 2 small checks, and gave them to the 2 people. The club's money is not painful to spend. The freelance reporter made a phone call, and more than 10 minutes later, Buckley, the deputy editor-in-chief of the Atlanta Star, rushed over. Monica and the others left on their own initiative. Martin said politely, Mr. Buckley, I need a report. Buckley asked, do you have a manuscript? Sorry, I can't write it. The predecessor Happy Education has not been completed, and it is rare to understand books and newspapers. An idiot like Alina can't understand even slightly complicated articles. Martin asked, I will tell you the theme and general content, and you write it? Buckley didn't say anything, slowly stirred the coffee with his right hand, and gently twisted his left thumb and index finger twice. The reward will definitely satisfy you. Martin took out a check from his pocket and pushed it over. Buckley looked at the number and shook his head slightly. Martin understood. Ad money? Although it was the club's money, it was really a bad experience to take money out of his pocket. Martin took out another one. Buckley was satisfied and took up the 2 checks. You say. Martin kicked Bruce. Bruce reacted immediately, pulling back his coat, opening his collar to reveal his gun bag. Sir, journalism is a noble profession, and I have high professional ethics. Buckley saw it clearly, and while collecting the checks, he swore, you pay, I do the work, you can rest assured. Civilized people do things, that's how reliable they are. Thanks to Leo Wang for recommending his popular new book A Guide to Traveling Through the Northern Song Dynasty. Big guys, a new week begins. Rushing to the new book list. Please vote. Please support. Chapter 30 Welcome to the Strong Man. In the morning, Scott Carter got up from under the counter, stretched, grabbed a bottle of wine, took a big gulp, and gulped down his head. The alcohol melted the smell of alcohol in his mouth, and he swallowed it into his stomach, and his spirits were lifted. He opened the door to eat breakfast, and when he bought a hot dog, he picked up someone else's newspaper to kill time. To be honest, he was much better at reading newspapers than Alina and others. This is a tabloid that men like very much, Atlanta Star. It often publishes some interesting reports, such as the motorcycle exhaust pipe of the Indian immigrant's family is broken. The recent secret reports on the Methodist Association and the ATL Freedom Society are quite attractive. In the eyes of the people in the Clayton community, those people who look glamorous on the surface are filthy inside. Scott also heard people say last year that the children of the faithful Methodists were hurt and had nowhere to cry. Turning to the second page of the newspaper, Scott looked for the story of the Methodist and Freedom Society and saw a line of eye-catching news headlines. The Methodist Church accused the Beast House of discrimination against men, and the Beast House responded that it was open to male customers from 10 p.m. every night. Scott looked at the specific content. The Star News sent a reporter to interview the Beast House. The person in charge of the Beast House said that the club supports freedom and equality, and there is absolutely no discrimination. The Beast House is open to all customers. Because the number of people is limited, male customers are recommended to enter after 10 p.m. Scott is a man. Even if his head is a little confused by alcohol, he understands the hidden meaning of this report. Who are the customers of the Beast House Male Dancer Club? What can a man gain by entering after 10 p.m.? Scott threw away the newspaper, opened the counter drawer, and searched for money. He only found $7. Scott slapped his forehead, remembered something, closed the store door, entered the community, and came to the neighborhood of his home. The bastard Martin has made money recently. He climbed over the waist-high wire fence and was about to enter the door to search, but found a broken pair of pliers on the windowsill outside, and there were bundles of barbed wire underneath. Scott glanced over and saw that the barbed wire between his house and James's house had been cut off. Fuck. The devises are all shit. He was furious. He picked up the pliers and cut more wire mesh. He tied it together with the previous ones and dragged it to sell as scraps to collect enough money to pick up girls that night. At the Beast House, everyone arrived at the club 3 hours early. Martin shouted, "Old Bruce, take out the damn posters." Bruce came over with a bundle of posters and put them on the stage. Hart came over and took them apart. The posters were printed with photos of the club when it was open. The faces of all the customers were blurred and only women could be seen. The eye-catching fonts formed the most simple language at 10 o'clock every night. The Beast House welcomed strong men to enter. Hart understood and was full of gratitude. "Dad Martin, you must let me call you Dad Martin. You saved my brother. My suffering brother." Martin pushed him away. "I only want my daughter." Hart had already practiced shamelessness and shouted to everyone, "You all bear witness. From tonight, I will save money for sex reassignment surgery. Next year, you will call me Miss Hart." Bruce urged, "Don't talk nonsense, you stupid pig. Go to work." Martin shouted to Ivan and others, "Go and post the posters on the poster board outside. Whoever is slow, I will marry Miss Hart to him and let you love each other for 10,000 years." Everyone rushed to marry Miss Hart. It was a difficult problem, whether to explode or be exploded. On the second floor, Vincent came out of the office and stood by the fence. Martin turned back. "Boss, we can't let people in." "I know." Vincent put his hands on the fence. "They can hook up as they please, but they can't mess around in my club. It's not difficult. It's just that after 10 o'clock, the Beast House becomes the most common nightclub." Martin said everything that should be said. He doesn't understand business management, and he is just a temporary worker who is paid by the hour. Outside the club, the poster was posted on the poster board, which immediately attracted the attention of many passers-by. Anyone who pays a little attention to social news in Atlanta knows what kind of place the Beast House is. Men don't need to be taught some things. Simple math problems written here may not be understood by many men. No matter how complicated the hints are, men can understand them after reading them. The two friends stared at the posters. One asked, "Come and see it tonight." The other said, "Man, you know, I always support freedom and equality." This afternoon, someone who read the Atlanta Star ran over to take a look. Seeing the posters posted by the Beast House, they replanned their evening schedule. When it got dark, a long line of female customers formed in front of the Beast House. In the past 2 days, the club has issued a relevant announcement that people who don't like it can leave after 10 o'clock. There are more female customers coming. It's better to meet the right one in one place than to go to other places. At 8:30 in the evening, 20 young and strong black guys were taken to the big private room on the second floor of the black bar opposite. Boyd was waiting here and said, "I carefully selected you in South City. Each of you is the best guy. I give you the opportunity to make money, and you have to help me make money. He looked at Digo. Have you made it clear? Digo said, I have said it carefully twice. Boyard's eyes swept across all the black faces, and suddenly took out a gun from his crotch. Remember, no matter how enthusiastic the people who come to you are, no matter how much money they are willing to give you, you are not allowed to leave immediately. You have to bring people into the bar and let them spend money. After they spend enough money, I don't care what they want to do next. These old blacks have no good way out. The big guys who worked hard to get into the prosperous city are willing to give them a chance, so they came. 10 minutes later, 20 black men with muscular bodies stood outside the black bar, waiting for the customers the boss had mentioned. Although female customers entered the bar one after another, none of them came from the Beast House across the street. After a while, hundreds of men lined up in front of the Beast House. Go across the street. The Beast House lets men in at 10 o'clock. A customer came out of the black bar and said to his companion, there are all those hungry sluts there, just pick them up, and they'll go with you. The two hurriedly crossed the street and lined up across the street. The news quickly spread in the black bar, and more men came out and rushed to the opposite side. People who often go to nightclubs near Zagio Street know that people who come out of the Beast House at night are particularly easy to pick up and have fun. Chapter 31 The Godly Operations of the Old Blacks. Please read. Hey, it's $15 for admission. Ivan and Blondie stood guard at the entrance of the club, collecting money and letting the men in. Every time they collected money, they said, no messing around in the club. If you want to do something, go out and find a place. Scott was standing in the line, very impatient, and shouted, don't talk nonsense, we know. I will definitely take someone out, so you can only watch. People who paid the money couldn't wait to enter the club. The atmosphere was so exciting that it was about to explode. Not only the ticket price, but you always have to buy someone a drink to chat up, which is another expense. Martin no longer mixes cocktails because there are too many people. He sells beer with Bruce. Many male customers give tips very happily to show their generosity. Scott came in and was looking for a target. He saw Martin behind the bar at a glance. Enemy met and was particularly jealous. Thinking of his wife who was abducted by the old bastard Jack Davis, Scott immediately went over and said, idiot, you work here. Martin glanced at him and said, I'm busy, you can do whatever you want. Scott's brain circuit is different from that of ordinary people. He immediately raised his voice and shouted, idiot, Martin's father seduced my wife to elope and didn't pay me. The men and women around looked at Scott as if they saw an alien. Considering Elena, Martin took a glass of beer and put it in front of Scott. I'll treat you. Scott took it and took a big sip. That's good enough. Then, he left. He said so much just to get a free drink. Bruce took the time to come over and said, is your dad an even bigger jerk than you? Martin was quite helpless. I'm a good man. He's a jerk. It's obvious. Bruce was curious. I really want to meet your dad and see how powerful he is. Martin's words killed the conversation. He won't lick posters, and he won't drink bath water from posters. Bruce shot back, I wish you can only mess with the earth for the rest of your life. Martin was shameless. You are envious. Bruce didn't want to talk. This jerk's face could definitely block bullets. In the club, men and women who successfully hooked up with each other quickly left, and a large number of people came in. The long queue at the door gradually shortened. Ivan picked up the intercom. Boss, send someone to get the money. Dana quickly came with 2 people, took away the 2 bags that were about to burst, and left 2 new bags for Ivan and Golden Retriever. There was a lot of cash, and it was late, so she left 1 person with a gun to guard the door. Across the street, 20 black guys stood on the side of the road, watching the couples leave intimately, and they were inexplicably restless. Fred swallowed his saliva, pointed to the other side of the road, and said to his companions, that guy, and the guy with the big hair. They went in for less than 5 minutes, and brought people out. It seems easy. The companion's voice was a little high. Another person said, shall we go over there too? Fred pointed to the Golden Retriever, just like us. We will charge admission fees. Do you have money? No one spoke. The 20 of them might be able to collect $20. but seeing that there were men bringing women out from the opposite side, especially a few losers who came out of the black bar and went to the beast house, they were able to pick up girls. Fred's emotions seemed to be ignited by a fuse. What should I do if I don't have money? They don't know how to make money, but they have a glorious tradition. Fred turned back and looked at the door of the black bar. Because fewer people entered, there was only one Latin boy collecting money. The Latin boy had a wallet wrapped around his waist and a stack of $5 in his hand. Fred noticed that several of his companions looked over there and whispered, "Let's do it. Let's do it." They had grown up like this since they were young, the old way. Fred nodded and walked towards the Latin boy first. "Hey, man, do you have a cigarette? Give me a cigarette." The Latin boy knew that this was the boss's new recruit, so he took 2 steps forward and reached out to take out a cigarette. "Bring your own next time." The 3 black men skillfully went around the other side of the Latin boy. Just when the Latin boy noticed something and turned around to look, a brick hit him on the head. Fred grabbed the money and the other 2 took off their wallets. Seeing that the Latin boy was unconscious, they threw them on the wall where they would not be in the way and ran across the road together. The rest of the people followed. They had no concept of the future and the future in their heads. The music in the black bar was blasting, and no one paid attention to the door. In the eyes of the people in the bar, they were not one person outside, but 21 people. Even if there were robbers, I had the advantage. As for passers-by, who cared about such a shitty thing as black robbery? There were not many people queuing at the beast house. Fred and his friends paid $300 for the ticket and entered the club. In the black bar, Boyd stood by the second floor fence and found something was not right. "Have you noticed that the number of customers has decreased tonight?" He looked at the door of the bar. The female customers from the opposite side didn't come. Also, there are quite a lot of people leaving. Digo frowned. People from the opposite side should have come in large numbers before. Boyd looked down. The number of customers is 30% less than normal. He waved to the bartender below and asked him to come up. The bartender ran up. "Boss?" Boyd asked. "Why is the number of customers less today?" There were quite a lot of people originally, about the same as before. The bartender heard many customers talking at the bar. "I heard them say that the beast house opposite started letting male customers in at 10 o'clock, and everyone who left went over there." Digo reacted quickly. No wonder the people from the opposite side didn't come. He patted the fence. Who came up with this idea? It must be an old pervert who knows the pervert's ideas too well. Boyd walked quickly to the street window, pulled open the curtains to look across. There were not many men queuing at the door of the beast house, but pairs of men and women kept coming out of it. It doesn't matter that the business across the street is good, but they are stealing their customers. Boyd was a little upset. Which pervert came up with such an idiotic idea? "I'm going to cut off his kidney." At this time, 2 people hurried up from downstairs. The Latin boy behind him covered his head with one hand, and blood was all over his face. Boyd was angry. What happened again? The Latin boy held the guardrail and said, "Boss, those 20 pieces of shit robbed our money. We even took away our wallets." "What?" Boyd stretched out his hand to take out the gun. Digo quickly held Boyd's hand to prevent him from pulling out the gun and venting. "Where are they?" The Latin boy said, "I was knocked unconscious, and when I woke up, they were gone." Digo stabilized Boyd. "Calm down. Calm down. Let's find out where they went first." Boyd pulled out his hand, smelled the smell, and sobered up a little. "Don't worry about the opposite side. Find those 20 pieces of shit for me." In the beast house, 20 strong black guys just came in. Martin noticed it and immediately stabbed Bruce. Bruce handed the bottle to Martin, turned around and went to the wine cabinet, picked up the intercom. "Tom, keep an eye on those blacks. They don't make trouble and don't mess around." He then asked the door, "Ivan, what's wrong with that group of blacks?" "They paid the money. I asked the boss. The boss let them in." Ivan actually wanted to stop them, but the boss's word was final. Bruce also knew that if he really stopped the blacks from entering the business, they would cause trouble with racial discrimination, which would be very complicated. The blacks didn't cause any trouble. They kept flirting with female customers, and the leader even came over to ask for a beer. Not long after, several female customers followed the group of blacks away. Martin talked to the black who asked for beer and said to Bruce they came from South City and helped at the black bar across the road. Bruce asked, across the road, what do they want to do? When he got off work in the evening, Blonde brought the latest news that the people in the black bar were looking for the group of blacks. It is said that the bar owner Boyd brought them here from the slums of the South City specifically to seduce our customers. As a result, those black men couldn't control their pants and robbed the bar's money and came to our place to spend money. Martin was deeply impressed. If we talk about being coquettish, it's still the black men who are coquettish. Bruce warned the bar security, pay attention to the opposite side. They dare to cause trouble, you know. Chapter 32 Hard's special thanks. For several days in a row, the Beast House was bustling with customers. The handsome men were all in high spirits. The high tips they received every night made them excited all the time. The temptation of making money can make people do some incredible things. In the locker room, the handsome men were preparing to change clothes and put on makeup for the stage. The leader Hard suddenly shouted, "Who gave us the money to make a fortune?" The handsome men shouted in a mess, "Crazy customers." Hard continued to ask loudly, "Who brought those crazy customers?" The handsome men's voices were much more uniform this time. "Martin Davis." For Martin's father. Hart moved out a box. "I want to raise funds." Carrington was curious. "Why?" Hart looked around. "Is Martin our father?" Someone smiled and said, "As long as he can make me money, I can call him God." The handsome men who made a lot of money these days shouted, "We will call Martin Dad from now on." Hart was heartbroken, but Martin Dad only wants daughters, not sons. The handsome men were silent for a moment. This sad reality deeply hurt their hearts. The club used to be very quiet, but Daddy Martin brought in a huge flow of customers, which made the club even more popular. "Each of us earns much more money than the white-collar workers in the CBD." Hart said in a low voice, as if complaining and crying, "How can we repay Daddy Martin?" Carrington said, "Aren't you going to save money for sex reassignment surgery and become Daddy Martin's daughter?" Hart wiped her nose. "Dad Martin is the father of all of us. I can't be too selfish and can't monopolize it." He raised his head. His expression was extremely serious and his voice was extremely solemn. "So, I made a decision. In order to thank Daddy Martin, we will save money collectively and send Dad Martin to Thailand for surgery as he said. After he has the surgery, all of us will love him together." The atmosphere in the locker room exploded. Carrington was the first to take out money. He grabbed a handful of small bills and stuffed them in without counting them. "I must support it. I support it too." Other handsome men also stuffed money in and shouted, "When the show is over today, let's go and give it to him together." It was almost time for business. Martin prepared some cocktail ingredients at the bar. Seeing Bruce throwing a cardboard box, he called him, "Give me the box." Bruce threw it over. Martin threw the box that used to hold tips to Bruce. "It's too small, change it to a bigger one." Bruce looked at his small drawer and put the box in the corner. "I'll use this." There were too many customers these days, and the tips were too much, so the small drawer couldn't hold them all. Those fighters who shouted for freedom of nightlife loved the atmosphere of the Beast House. The Beast House has become a nightlife club for freedom fighters. Bruce asked Martin, "What about your rich woman? How is it going?" Martin shrugged. "It's better than you licking posters." After hurting each other, he said, "The rich woman is busy with work. She may come over on weekends." He has been watching the news recently. Although there has been no direct conflict between the Freedom Association and the Methodist Church, the public opinion attacks on each other have never stopped. Obviously, it involves a higher level of political struggle. Even the donkey-elephant dispute in Atlanta. Kelly Gray wants to seek benefits from this. Dana's voice came from the second floor. "Martin." Martin wiped his hands, went up to the second floor, and entered the office. He found that in addition to Vincent, there was an unusually strong woman sitting on the sofa. It is impossible to tell her exact age. She is nearly 1.8 meters tall. Her arms, calves and neck exposed outside her clothes are all tendon meat. The legendary fitness witch. She is Sophia. Vincent introduced casually, took off his cowboy hat, took out a check from the drawer, and pushed it to Martin. "This is from you." Martin spent time and energy doing all this just for the money. He picked it up and looked at the number and said, "Thank you, boss." Vincent, who was not wearing a hat, looked softer, although his hooked nose was more prominent. You did a good job. If you have other ideas, you can always come to me. He grasped the key to mobilizing Martin's enthusiasm. I'm a generous person. Martin didn't mind complimenting him. You are a good boss. After Martin left, Sophia asked, is he the key figure in the club's soaring performance? Vincent said, he is very thoughtful, but he is a poor guy. Sophia rubbed the calluses on her fingers. He is a talent. Don't mess around. Vincent reminded, how difficult is it to find a smart person among the poor? Let him go. He is still young and can't stand your tossing. After putting away the check, Martin returned to the bar. Bruce knew why he went upstairs, but he didn't ask for the specific amount. He just said, you should compensate me. Martin was confused at first, then suddenly realized, back door? Bruce didn't act like a civilized person at this moment. You idiot made me miss the best opportunity. I will compensate you. Martin was very generous. The income of the Handsome Men's group has skyrocketed recently. Hart has been wanting to thank me. I originally wanted to refuse, but now I decided to give Hart this opportunity and let him be ready and waiting for you. Bruce pointed his finger into a gun and pointed it at Martin. I really want to open your head and see if it's filled with dog shit. Martin remembered something. Who is Sophia? The boss's stepmother. Bruce unconsciously lowered his voice. She is a fitness fanatic with excessive hormone secretion, and her needs in that area are amazing. It's very scary. You should be careful. Martin nodded slightly. There are still many customers tonight, and Martin and Bruce are very busy. At around 9:30, there were fewer female customers who came to ask for wine. A strong arm fell on the bar, and Sophia said to Bruce, long time no see. Bruce forced a smile. Good evening, Sophia. How come you have time to come? Sophia looked around the room. Don't worry, I won't look for you tonight. Don't you allow men to enter? Why aren't you here? It's not time yet. Bruce reacted and picked up the intercom. Ivan, start early tonight. Sophia's eyes fell on Martin. Are you interested in working for me? Martin considered himself loyal and trustworthy. He quickly glanced at Sophia's lumps of flesh and her face with some collagen loss, and said with extraordinary firmness, Vincent treats me very well. Sophia smiled. Interesting. Vincent's generosity is very popular. Idiot Martin. Someone suddenly interrupted. Give me a beer. Don't talk nonsense. Martin turned his head and saw Scott standing in front of the bar. This guy obviously dressed up to pick up girls. Except for his shabby clothes, he was also a handsome middle-aged man. Seeing that Martin did not move, Scott raised his voice. The idiot Martin's father seduced my wife privately. Bruce took a beer and placed it in front of Scott. Just then, Sophia's eyes turned to Scott, and Martin introduced him. This is Scott, a very interesting person. Scott is a proactive person who does not care about food or meat. Seeing Sophia looking at him, he walked over with a beer and took out $5 and slapped it on the bar. Give this beautiful lady a drink. It's my treat. 10 minutes later, Sophia and Scott left the club together. Bruce whispered, I hope he can still walk tomorrow. Martin asked, Old Bruce, have you actually experienced it? Bruce shut his mouth tightly and went to the end of the club without saying a word to Martin. This man is so tactless. Martin understood that old Bruce had a very miserable experience. All the customers left, and the club became quiet. Hart ran out from the backstage holding a box, followed by Carrington and other handsome men who did not go out. Martin had a bad feeling. Hart had practiced dancing for several months, and had some basic skills. He slid down, and knelt in front of Martin on the smooth floor, holding the box high above his head. Martin said, this is a token of our gratitude to you. Martin did not take it, but looked at Hart's back and said, if you can't get 3 bars on your knees, you will be rejected. Hart raised the box higher. Martin took it, and found that it was full of small bills, and asked, what do you mean? The money collected by everyone in the Handsome Men's group. Hart said very seriously, in order to thank you for the traffic you brought to us, we collected money to invite you to Thailand. Martin was angry. You bastards, is this how you thank me? Old bull, take out your gun and blow up all these bastards. This amount of money was certainly not enough for surgery, but it was enough to hold a small party in the club. except for the boss Vincent, the accountant Dana, and the handsome men who were working outside. The rest of the people drank happily. Chapter 33, The End of the World. After leaving the club, Martin and Bruce went to the parking lot together. They had been drinking with Hart and others, and had come out late. The security on West Street in the early morning was not good. Martin stared at two black men walking by the roadside, and his hand unconsciously reached into his clothes and grasped the handle of the gun. When the men walked away, he said, "Why do I feel like I'm in Iraq?" Bruce said, "There are no weapons of mass destruction here." Black smoke floated over, and a shabby van drove over and stopped at the door of the black bar. The door opened, and several people with guns escorted three black guys down. Martin knew one of them. He had bought beer from him a few nights ago. The other blacks seemed to call him Fred. Bruce also had an impression, the ones who robbed the black bar. Martin said, "They should be. It looks like they were caught." Bruce came to the passenger door of the Ford and motioned Martin to open the door quickly. He said, "It's normal to have broken hands and feet. It's possible that their fingers were cut off." Martin rarely dealt with black people and asked, "What do they think?" Growing up in the worst quagmire, they have no skills, no knowledge, no experience, and stealing and robbing had long been integrated into their lives. Bruce pointed to his head. Plus, when they are emotional, it's easy to lose control. Martin opened the car door and asked, "If I wish someone to give birth to a bunch of black people?" Bruce got on the passenger seat and smiled. "You are so vicious." After sending Bruce off first, Martin returned home and parked the car in the backyard. The Carter's house next door was pitch black. After quickly washing up and lying on the repaired wooden bed, Martin took out the check in his pocket and pressed it under the bed, reminding himself to cash it tomorrow. It's not safe to carry this thing with you or hide it at home. Whoever is poor in the Clayton community is fucking safe. Vincent fulfilled his promise and paid the full $10,000. Martin received a $15,000 bonus from Vincent and at the same time eliminated the $6,000 loan shark. He roughly calculated his income and expenditure. His former boss Maximum generously gave him $3,000 and he received $1,800 for 3 days of filming City People. Then there was the hourly wage and tips for being a bartender. The biggest expenses were guns and cars. He bought a lot of bullets for practicing shooting. After the down payment, he paid the first installment of the car, and there were also miscellaneous expenses such as food expenses for Alina. Martin hadn't checked his account for a while, but with the newly received $10,000, the account balance was definitely more than $20,000. Money is a person's courage. Only with a certain amount of funds as a foundation can one do things freely. Martin suddenly remembered one thing. He still owed Alina rent. Living in someone else's house and doing hundreds of millions of dollars in business with others, it seemed a bit unreasonable not to pay the rent. In an apartment in Midtown, Scott came out of the bathroom after taking a shower. Sophia sat on the sofa in shorts and a vest, revealing her well-developed thigh muscles and well-defined abdominal muscles. She pointed to the water and pills on the coffee table and said, "Take it." Scott looked over and saw that they were painkillers. He shook his head quickly. "I'm not sick. Why should I take this?" Sophia didn't persuade him, but pointed to the bedroom with the door open. "Let me tell you the rules. Except for the bathroom and this room, other rooms are strictly prohibited. Understand?" Scott licked his face and walked over. "As long as I feel comfortable, everything else is fine." Sophia threw a mask over him. "Put it on and follow me." Scott laughed. "Are you still playing a mystery game?" He put it on his head and was led into another room by Sophia. With the crisp sound of the silver bracelet being buckled, Sophia burst out with a sharp shout, "You are arrested." The black rubber baton was in her hand. Soon, Scott screamed and regretted not taking painkillers. "Resist?" Sophia directly took out a pistol and put it on his mouth. For Scott Carter, this was a miserable night and an unforgettable night. The sun finally rose, and Scott leaned against the wall and moved out. Sophia sat on the sofa with a silver white pistol in front of her. "I called a car for you. It's at the door of the apartment." She picked up a mobile phone and threw it to Scott. "It's on 24 hours a day, available at any time. Do you understand the consequences of not answering the phone?" Scott wanted to cry, but when he saw Sophia holding the gun, He put away the phone obediently. I know. Sophia thought of Vincent, took the bag, and found that she didn't bring cash and checkbook, so she stood up and said, "Wait a moment." She opened a tightly closed room door and walked in. Between the opening and closing of the door, Scott took a peek and found some boxes inside. Sophia came out quickly, holding a stack of $20, and threw it to Scott. "Your service fee." Scott's face changed immediately, and he didn't feel much pain in an instant, and said, "I promise to be available at any time." Sophia waved her hand. "Let's go. Goodbye." Scott thought that Sophia was much more noble than Jack Davis and Martin Davis, the father and son who played for free. At least Sophia paid. In the morning, in the Carter family's yard, Elena looked at the barbed wire fence that was cut into pieces and said, "Damn it. I'm going to break Scott's nose." Martin pulled down a wire. "I have nothing to do during the day. Go buy some to fix it." Harris walked out of the room. "You buy new ones and give Scott money for nothing." Elena thought for a while and said, "I'll find a way to get some wood. It's not worth money, so he won't move." She asked Martin, "Did you get the wood for repairing the bed in the church cemetery?" Martin asked back, "You want to dig a grave?" Elena was speechless. "I'm not as perverted as you, an idiot. Can we discuss this later?" Lily came out with a mobile phone. "Scott said he was injured. Let's go to the community to pick him up." Elena seemed not to hear. "Go back to eat." Lily hung up the phone directly and wanted to speak again, but found that Martin's hand was less than 20 centimeters away from his head, so she shut up decisively. The 5 people sat around the dining table, eating bread slices and fried sausages. Martin said, "Breakfast is very rich recently." Elena raised her hand and shook her chastity ring. "The idiots in the Methodist Church and the Methodist Church admire me very much, and they always give me more meat." Martin drank a glass of milk and said to Elena, "Calculate how much rent I owe." Elena nodded. "When I have time, I will find the account book to see how much it is." Lily finally found a chance to interrupt. "Is the end of the world coming?" Martin stared at her. "Don't force me to beat minors." Lily picked up the cup and drank a sip of milk. I don't know how many dirty words came out of her stomach, hitting her tightly closed teeth and pushing up her cheeks. After breakfast, Martin drove Elena to the Methodist Church. He contacted Bruce and went to the gun club to practice shooting in the morning. In the afternoon, he called Jerome. The leader he respected the most heard a lot of news about the crew from Los Angeles. Chapter 34, playing a more colorful game. There was a van parked in front of the Merita Community Theater. Martin drove the Ford to the opposite side, got out and crossed the street, and found Robert carrying goods with many new faces. Robert wiped the sweat from his forehead and called out, "Come and help." Before Martin could speak, the window on the second floor of the theater facing the street opened, and Jerome waved down. "These jobs are not for you, Martin. Come up quickly." Robert muttered, "Is it fair?" Martin patted his arm and entered the theater. At least 40 new faces were carrying goods back and forth. Jerome recruited a lot of new people. When he came to the director's office, Martin's attitude was as good as before. "Director, I'm here." Jerome poured him a cup of coffee and was very enthusiastic. "I specifically asked people in the industry in Los Angeles about that matter and basically found out that it was a project jointly invested by multiple companies, led by Focus Features, and was a romantic drama type. It has not yet been officially promoted. It is temporarily called Noon Sunshine of a Beautiful Mind or something else. It was filmed in Los Angeles for a while and will soon be transferred to Atlanta next month." Martin tried hard to recall that he had seen too many movies in his previous life. Love without action was almost nothing. His focus was not here, and he asked, "What about the female producer Andrew mentioned, Kelly Gray's friend?" Gray's company assisted the crew in Atlanta, and it is likely because of her. If we can learn about her situation, the troupe will have a chance. This was also the focus of Jerome's attention. If the troupe cooperated with a real Hollywood crew, how many people would be willing to pay the membership fee? Jerome had inquired carefully. "Her name is Louise Mayer, the executive producer of the crew, the owner of Pacific Pictures, and it is said that she participated in the investment." Yes, there is another piece of information that may be useful. Louise Mayer is a director of the LA Free Association. Martin was not surprised. Kelly Gray talked to him about Los Angeles, and she was deeply influenced by Californians. "Captain, you are really well informed." Martin praised him at the right time. Jerome couldn't help laughing. "Don't forget, our troupe has produced Robert Patrick." Martin understood that Jerome was likely to have a connection with T-1000. Jerome added, "You are close to great company, don't forget the troupe." He vowed, "As long as the troupe can participate in this big production, Martin, I recommend you to be the deputy director. The troupe is also an important channel." And Martin immediately stated, "I'm a member of the Merita troupe." Jerome didn't mention the membership fee at all. If this thing really succeeds, will he still worry about not collecting the membership fee? After Martin left, he went to the Merita library to borrow a public computer and checked Louise Mayer, but there was almost no information. Then, he drove to a quiet place and thought carefully. Noon Sunshine of a Beautiful Mind invested $20 million, a project that crushed all the works of Gray Company combined. Correspondingly, Louise Mayer also exceeded the ceiling he could currently reach. Kelly Gray. Martin believed that getting to know people was more important, and he had a channel. Kelly Gray. The information obtained was comprehensive. The other party was a member of the Freedom Club. Kelly Gray mentioned that her friend in Los Angeles liked wine. The latter was easy to say, but the former was a bit troublesome. Hollywood has always been at the forefront of freedom and democracy, and has played the most extravagant games. Kelly Gray finds Hollywood interesting, but that may not be the case. Playing something more extravagant? Martin had previously considered increasing the sales of Beast House merchandise. There is a kind of merchandise that is particularly suitable for liberal fighters. It is best to match the social environment and public opinion. It is time to stand on the opposite side of the Methodist Church. But if it works well, it can make a small fortune. As for failure, it will not be worse than it is now. At most, it can go on stage. Martin calculated the time. When the crew came, thought for a while, and called Buckley, a reporter from the Atlanta Star. Buckley was very good in the face of civilized people who gave him money. "Mr. Davis," Martin said, "please help me find out one thing. Who is the most hardline conservative leader in the Methodist Association? Has he had any public activities recently? Can you find relevant information?" He added, "I will not let my friends do it for nothing." Buckley smiled and said, "Leave it to me." After saying a few more words, Martin hung up the phone. He checked the time, started the car, and went to the club. The Handsome Men's group was practicing on the stage. The choreographer from the Savannah School of the Arts was rehearsing a new tap dance. Bruce leaned against the bar and asked, "Is your rich woman coming tonight?" "Maybe." Martin pulled a high stool and sat down to enjoy the dance. There was no stripping involved. The Handsome Men's group's dance was actually pretty good. Bruce was very careful about using civilized language. "Are you ready?" Martin was thinking about what he had considered before and said, "That's not the key. It's just a filler option." "Filler?" Bruce nodded and smiled innocently. "You got the essence." At 8:30 in the evening, Kelly Gray came to the club. Unlike the professional suit she wore during the day, she changed into a skirt and macape, and she looked a lot younger. After watching the tap dance for a while, Kelly Gray threw a $20 tip and came to the bar. "Good evening, Kelly." Martin came over. Bruce took over all the work at the bar. Kelly Gray sat on a high chair and asked, "What do you recommend tonight?" Martin did not answer, but asked, "Is there anything you want to do recently?" Kelly Gray thought for a while and said, "I really want to go to the beach for vacation, but I can't let go of my work and responsibilities." "I got it." Martin opened a cocktail shaker, put in ice cubes, gin, blue orange wine and lemon liqueur in turn, shook it evenly, poured it into the chilled martini glass, and finally decorated it with lemon slices. The blue cocktail is like the pure sea. Aegean love. He did not forget to add, "As usual, I'll treat." Kelly Gray sipped the wine slowly and said, "I heard that the Methodist Church attacked the House of Beasts for discriminating against men. Shameless slander. I'm going to teach them a lesson." Martin said, "I've been reading the newspapers. Conservative public opinion has been counterattacking wildly. The Methodist Church has been at the forefront, publicly insulting the Freedom Church and the House of Beasts, and even attacking us for gender discrimination." He spoke with confidence. "The club gives priority to ladies, doesn't it?" Isn't this the gentleman spirit that has always been advocated? How can it be discrimination? Kelly thought it was okay, and ladies should be given priority. She specifically reminded, it is very troublesome to involve discrimination and a response must be made. Don't be polite to me if you need help. Martin was very responsible. Kelly, you can't lower your standards and participate in such a low-end battle. The scum of the Methodist Church is not worthy of it. Your consideration makes sense. Kelly nodded slightly. Just go ahead and do this, and the Freedom Church will cooperate with you. Martin thought for a while, and said, the Methodist Church uses slander as an attack. Kelly, I come from the bottom, and my response may be a little vulgar. Kelly Gray thought for a moment and said, well, give me your detailed information. The Freedom Association also has male staff. I recommend you to become a part-time social investigator for the ATL Freedom Association. Martin thought to himself, is this a bit too much? He never returns from the road of being a freedom fighter. At this moment, he can only agree, okay. Martin wanted to ask if there was any salary for part-time work, but for the sake of the image he had just established, he held back. The dance music suddenly stopped, and sand sculpture Hart stood on the circular stage, holding a microphone, and shouting to the women under the stage, tonight there is a special show. The first handsome man in the House of Beasts, Martin Davis, who you all dream of knocking over, will be playing his acting debut. Hundreds of customers made waves of booing. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 35, The King of Lip Service. The TVs installed in various places in the club switched to a cable TV station at the same time, and an art drama began to be broadcast. The biggest feature of the film was the handsome men and beautiful women, whose looks and figures were absolutely amazing. As for other aspects, it is better not to mention them. After all, even the soundtrack was classical music that did not require copyright fees. Kelly was in a good mood and joked on purpose. I remember, the supporting actress fought zombies. Martin followed her words and said, you invest in a movie, and I will show you how zombies fight beautiful women. Kelly drank a glass of wine and was a little drunk. She said, I will discuss with Benjamin and ask him to write a script so that you're. What did the crew say? She laughed so hard. Mortar bombardment. Martin asked, Catherine? Or Benjamin? I will settle accounts with them later. Kelly looked up at the TV. Your part has begun. On the stage, Hart's reminder came. Our handsome guy Martin is on stage. Look. He is holding a gun and charging at the beauty. He wants to snatch the beauty. His tone was particularly exaggerated. Come on, Martin. The exciting moment has arrived, and we will soon be able to enjoy Martin fighting. Hart couldn't continue the second half of the sentence because the character played by Martin on TV was shot in the head by the male protagonist and died on the ground. What's even more tragic is that he died with his eyes open. The male and female protagonists staged a battle with hundreds of millions of casualties in front of him. Bruce felt very sympathetic and came to comfort him. You watch others do it. Martin comforted himself. I have a close-up. Did you see it? There is a close-up in the first movie. Benjamin Calvin, this perverted director, was willing to give a close-up to a background character in order to highlight the contrast. Hart saw that the atmosphere on the scene was a bit cold. In order not to make Martin's father sad, he was quick-witted and shouted, Martin Davis, it turns out that you really want to blow up the earth. The whole audience was shocked and burst into laughter. Kelly laughed so hard that she covered her face with one hand and kept slapping the bar with the other hand. Martin's face was full of grief and anger. Is it funny? Sorry. Kelly held back her laughter and looked up. When she saw Martin's handsome face, she remembered the horrified expression when he stared at the male and female protagonists with wide eyes and laughed again. Martin lamented, it's over, my good reputation. Kelly stopped laughing, suddenly stood up, asked for a microphone, and said loudly, I'll buy everyone a drink. Martin Davis, he's a good actor. The laughter in the room suddenly turned into applause and cheers. People kept encouraging him because of the drink Kelly bought. "Martin, you acted great. I'll remember your terrified face for a week." Most of them were really indecent. "Handsome guy, I'm the earth. Come here quickly. Auntie will help you maintain your weapons. I want to check your ammunition reserves." The waiters took out the beer one after another, and the noise finally subsided. Martin poured himself a glass of whiskey and poured Kelly a glass of fruit wine. "It's terrible. Hell is empty, and the succubus is on earth." Kelly exclaimed, "It's not easy for you to live to this day. Because no matter how much money they offer, or how they seduce me, I will not be moved. Martin is full of integrity. I know what my goal is. He is always so honest. I want to be an actor and a star." Kelly reminded, "This road is not easy." Martin clinked his glasses with her. "For people like me, which road is easy? The easy road is to join the gangs in the slums and become a little brother selling flour and seaweed. I don't know when I will die in the stinking ditch." He shrugged. "The difficult road and the easy road are actually the same to me. They are both damn difficult." Kelly didn't mind Martin swearing, but sighed at Martin's true feelings. "This life is always so fucked up." Martin drank the wine in the glass in one gulp. "Always fucked up." Kelly drank up the fruit wine, settled the beer bill with Bruce, and turned around. "Martin, it's easy to chat with you. You're an interesting guy." She took out another $20 and put it on the bar. "Old rules. You buy the drinks and I'll give the tip." Martin put the money away. "I won't be polite with you. You treated me to drinks twice. I'll treat you to dinner later." "Forget it. I can't say when I'll be free. I'll call you then." Before leaving, Kelly suddenly hooked her finger at Martin, waited for him to come closer, and whispered, "I'll introduce someone to you some other time." Martin was naturally puzzled. "Who is that person? So mysterious?" Kelly waved her hand. "You'll know when the time comes. If nothing else, just for that glass of paper airplane, the drunkard woman will definitely come over." As the people gradually walked away, Bruce asked, "Just leaving like that?" Martin was surprised. "Why are you staying?" Bruce nodded. "I see. Your skills are all on your tongue." Martin was several times thicker than Bruce, and he immediately countered, "Of course not like you. It's on your tongue." The bar business was still booming, and the customer flow increased by more than 1/3 compared to before. When it was time to close, Martin had 2 large piles of tips in his pockets and asked Bruce, who was hitching a ride, to go back to Merita together. Bruce's old pickup truck couldn't hold on any longer, and he was ready to change a car. When they arrived at the Backer community, Bruce got out of the car. Martin saw that the lights were on in his house and deliberately shouted, "Old Bruce, don't go out the back door." Bruce left a high middle finger. Martin returned home and saw that the lights were on in the front yard of Carter's house, so he hurried over. Elena and her 4 siblings were having a midnight snack in the yard. Martin asked, "Are you in such high spirits?" Elena threw a can of beer over and said, "Waiting for you." "Waiting for me? Don't talk nonsense." Elena said to Harris, "Look after the house." Then she said to Lily and Hall, "Come with me." Martin asked, "Where are we going?" Elena said, "Go drive the car. We'll wait for you. You'll know when you get there." Martin didn't waste any words and drove the car from the backyard to the front door. The 3 of them got in the car, and Elena lowered the passenger window. "Go to the church cemetery." Martin started the car and drove over there, asking, "Would?" Elena said, "Scott, that bastard, won't steal worthless things. Fire, theft, and ad. This is an area where poor people live. The Methodist church cemetery is just randomly fenced with wooden fences. The poor, homeless people, and homeless cats and dogs have already made the wooden fences full of holes." Martin turned off the lights early and drove over slowly. The 4 people got out of the car and dismantled the wooden fences together. Lily looked into the cemetery and whispered, "Will a female ghost come out and take Martin away?" Martin pointed to the nearest pit and said, "Idiot, do you see that? That's a grave." Lily turned pale with fear. A female ghost came out. Her voice trembled. "Hey, can you hear me? Take Martin away, don't take us." Martin said sinisterly, "If you don't shut up, I will bury you in that pit." Lily didn't dare to speak. The 4 men tore down and smashed and took away half of the wooden fence of the trunk and retreated in the night. Hall suggested carrying a coffin board back to use as a bedboard for Harris, but Martin slapped him on the back of his head. Hall was indignant and didn't want to see the idiot Martin again. He got in the car and lay on the back seat to look behind the car. In the distance, a large house very close to the cemetery suddenly flashed with lights, and Hall vaguely saw a girl running out, and someone was chasing behind. Before he could see clearly, the lights went out again. Hall scratched his head and didn't take it seriously. The poor can't even take care of themselves. Chapter 36 Conservative Diehards. On the weekend morning, Carter and his sister went out together to repair the fence in the yard. Mrs. Wood, who lived across the street, came from a distance with a cart and stopped in front of the door. She said, "Last night, I saw Scott being picked up by a car." Elena smiled and said, "That's good. He won't come to disturb us." Mrs. Wood was a good person and reminded her, "You can't live without him." Elena nodded. "He will be fine." Mrs. Wood pushed the cart and slowly walked across the street. Martin came out of the house with a toolbox, looked at the slightly worn wood in front of him, and began to give instructions. Hall, take your shovel and dig a hole. Harris, find a ruler to measure the height. Lily, help me. He found a handsaw and started sawing wood. Suddenly someone blocked the sun. Martin looked up and found that it was Lily. "Idiot, what are you doing?" Lily stretched out her hand. "You are as stupid as a pig. Give me the saw." Martin remembered that Elena mentioned that Lily was the best at handicrafts in the Carter family, so he handed the handsaw to her and asked, "Can you do it?" Lily sawed the wood skillfully, and her mouth was still busy. "I can make it exactly like you." Martin didn't let her shut up, but said, "I have a handicraft to do." Then he thought of Lily's age. "Forget it, you are not suitable." Lily raised her voice. "Look at how I saw this piece of wood into your shape. You better not brag, idiot." Martin decided to find a companion for James. "If you can't do it, I will dig a hole in the backyard and bury you." Lily blinked, then listened to you and Elena every night. With a whoosh, the broken rope thrown by Elena hit Lily's head. Lily quickly shut up and did the handicraft quietly. Martin took the shovel and helped Hall to dig the hole. The body seemed to have muscle memory and was particularly skilled at it. Digging a hole to bury a person didn't seem difficult. After working for most of the morning, a wooden fence was erected in the part of the yard where the wire mesh was missing. All the wood was shaped strangely, standing upright in the earth and cang, as if it was dealing with the earth. Lily Carter's masterpiece. Martin and Elena tied it up with ropes and connected it to the wire mesh. Although it was not very beautiful, it was functional. The main thing was that they were not afraid of thieves. Scott should not be interested in worthless broken wood. Martin washed his hands, drove out, and said, "I'll treat you at noon, idiots." Elena and the other four got in the car, and Martin drove to a nearby fried chicken and hamburger restaurant. The average amount per person was $5 or $6, enough to make Lily and Hall, two idiots, roll their eyes and vomit. After dinner, Harris bought some old magazines from a nearby bookstore. Back at Carter's house, Martin sat on the sofa, picked up a magazine, and said to Elena, "Calculate the rent." Then, he turned and pointed at Lily. "Shut up, idiot." Lily's words got stuck in her throat, and she coughed and tried to defend herself. "I didn't say anything." Elena went to find the account book. Martin flipped through the magazines, and picked up an astronomy magazine. The page he turned to was introducing a recently discovered star. It seems that many new stars are discovered every year. Martin picked up the magazine and shook it at Harris. "Have you studied astronomy?" Harris was reading a book seriously, without even looking up. "Forgot? I'm a member of the astronomy club. Don't ask me to introduce you to the stars. I'm in a public middle school." Elena came out of the bedroom with a notebook, flipping through it and said, "I don't know how Emma negotiated with Jack. The rent for half a year is $1,000 US. Martin thought that it must have been negotiated in bed, and said, "I'll transfer it to you on Monday." Just like Fack, Elena never said anything polite to Martin when she got up, and immediately glared at him. "Idiot, do you want to learn from the bastard Jack to default on his debts? This is until the end of March, and it's almost June." Lily finally seized the opportunity. Because he defaults on his debts, he will feel more comfortable when he messes around. The astronomy magazine was thrown out and hit Lily in the face. Martin said straightforwardly, "I'll give you $2,000 US. Elena was very generous. "I don't want the interest." I have an appointment with friends in the afternoon, you guys continue. Martin got up and went out. Elena picked up the clothes basket and followed Martin to the next door to pick up the clothes Martin had changed. The washing machine here was sold many years ago, and Martin took all his dirty clothes to Elena's place to wash. Martin was used to it, so he drove to downtown Atlanta without saying anything and came to the coffee shop where he had been last time. Barkley, a reporter from the Atlanta Star, was already waiting here. When he saw Martin, he said, "I got some information." Martin took out the $200 he had prepared and pushed it to Barkley. "This is yours." Last time, Martin asked Monica's freelance journalist friend about the market price for asking reporters for information and buying materials. Buckley put away the money and said, "In a few days, a director of the Atlanta Methodist Association, a man named Milton, will attend a large-scale skills training press conference. He is the most hardline conservative opinion leader of the Methodist Association." He opened his bag, took out the collected information, and handed it to Martin. The remarks that triggered the protest of the Freedom Association, the view that women are just family subordinates and must follow the will of the family, were publicly expressed by him. Martin quickly browsed. Has this man made even tougher remarks in the past? Buckley nodded. Yes, he is a diehard conservative. Martin went to look at Milton's information. Of course, what Buckley provided was not secret, and most of it could be found by reporters. One paragraph caught Martin's attention. In Milton's 3 marriages, 2 failed because the woman cheated. When the woman filed for divorce, she accepted an interview with the media and said that Milton was useless. Martin thought for a while and said, "Barkley, my friend, I may need you to do me a small favor in a few days." Barkley looked at the money, then at Martin's very civilized clothes. Without any hesitation, "We are friends. I must help you with this little favor. If you need me any day, give me a call. I'll be there at your beck and call." Martin made a phone gesture. "Wait for my call." Barkley took the money given by the civilized man and left the cafe in a good mood. He was originally a tabloid storyteller, and he made money, which was not bad. Martin came to the club and went to the office to find Vincent. "Boss, I have carefully read various newspapers in Atlanta these days. The media no longer mentions the name of the Beast House, which is not conducive to further expanding the club's popularity." Vincent got practical benefits from the popularity and was very concerned about it. He said, "It is impossible for us to really sue the Methodist Church. Civil litigation takes a long time and costs a lot of money. It is not worth it." In the last press conference, Martin's accusations were so loud that he actually sent a lawyer's letter. Martin said, "Boss, it was the Methodist Association that took the initiative to cause trouble to us last time. Why can't we take the initiative to cause trouble to them? We go to protest to the bastards of the Methodist Association and then call the media reporters. Let the media hype it up again." Vincent thought he could do it. "Are you sure?" Martin said again, "I saved Kelly Gray, a director of the Liberty Association last time. Ms. Gray hired me as a part-time social investigator for the Liberty Association. We can use the name of the Liberty Association." Vincent thought of the key role Martin played in the club's explosion and agreed. "Okay, personnel expenses will be calculated as hourly wages." Martin thought to himself that those who take the initiative to come to the door are really not worth much. Chapter 37. Under the Trolls. After get off work in the evening, Bruce continued to take Martin's ride. Thinking about what Martin said, he said, "Hart and the guys in the stylish group believe that you can bring in more income, so they are willing to go with you to protest against the Methodist Association." Martin certainly knew this. "Don't worry, I will let them continue to call me Dad." Bruce asked, "Reward for news informants? I guess we are all on the blacklist." "That's easy. You can ask Monica to make the call, and Hart and the others can ask their wives or friends to make the call." Martin turned the car around and drove closer to the backer community. The boss agreed to give subsidies based on hourly wages. He thought for a moment and said, "I'll go to the Freedom Club on Monday to see if I can get a sponsorship." "Old Bruce, this may not work, so don't tell me yet." Ford stopped at the intersection, and Bruce got out of the car. "Don't worry, I'm not an idiot like you." The car door closed, and Martin stepped on the accelerator and ran away, leaving Bruce smoking on the spot. Bruce was angry. I hope you get robbed by a black man when you go back. Martin stretched his left arm out of the car window and gave him a middle finger. The car drove to the intersection that turned to the Clayton community. Under the few street lights that were still lit, two white men stood up, holding white plastic bags in their hands and gesturing towards Martin. Martin had encountered the vendors selling seaweed and flour before. He did not slow down and continued to walk forward. After walking out for only a few dozen meters, there was a sharp brake sound behind him. Martin subconsciously looked at the rearview mirror. A pickup truck rushed to the intersection. The two white men turned around and ran. After running a few steps, the passenger and rear doors of the pickup truck opened at the same time. Fire flashed. Boom. Under the trolls, all beings are equal. The two white men fell to the street. Martin drove very fast and drove all the way into the backyard. His hand touched the gun inside his clothes, and he felt a little safer. Fuck him. Seeing the scenery with his own eyes, Martin's Chinese curse deep in his heart burst out. Trolls. Although there are trolls around the community, Clayton is not the most chaotic community. It is much better than the black and Latino communities. It was the first time Martin had seen a shooting in person since he came here. He washed his face, calmed down, closed the doors and windows, and waited for a while. The community was still quiet, so he went to bed. In the early hours of the morning, Martin was awakened by the sound of gunfire, which sounded not far away. Martin picked up his pistol and mobile phone and stood guard behind the masonry load-bearing wall at the door. The roar of car and motorcycle engines sounded, and the gunshots were intermittent. He called Alina, waited for the call to be connected, and said, "Close the doors and windows, don't come out." Alina said, "I know, idiot, don't go out either. Your broken pistol is not useful for shooting birds." Martin hung up the phone and called 911. It is estimated that many people in the community called the police, but the sirens did not sound for a long time. There is no human rights in poor communities. When the gunshots disappeared and the roar of the motors dissipated, the sirens finally came from a distance. After dawn, Martin and Alina went to the scene of the crime to take a look. Less than 150 meters away from Carter's house, the wooden walls were covered with bullet holes like a hornet's nest, and the blood on the muddy ground dried up and turned dark. The police set up a cordon. Martin saw Mr. Wood and asked, "What happened?" Wood came early and learned something. "I heard that the black gangs from the south came to rob goods and markets and had a fight with Jackson and his gang. 4 people died. Our broken community will be in chaos in the future." The middle-aged man next to him asked, "I'm going to buy a gun. Are you going?" Alina replied, "I'll go. Whoever dares to break into my house, I'll blow his pig head off." Martin went back to drive, and at the same time called Bruce and Monica, and went to the gun store together. Bruce said, "Last night, a dealer also died in the Backer community. Martin was lucky. If we go this way, we will end up the same way." The atmosphere in the car was a bit heavy. The 4 people were all from the lower class and had not received a good education. Only Bruce was in a better situation because he had been a soldier. Martin parked his car in front of the gun store. "Everyone, let me say something unpleasant. Don't fall into the quagmire in the future. No one will lend a hand to help us poor guys." Bruce seemed to understand. "So, you have been working part-time?" Martin opened the car door. "I'm a part-time hourly worker, and I don't know anything else." Alina and Monica were puzzled. What are these 2 idiots talking about? The 4 got out of the car and went to the gun store to choose guns. Martin has a pistol, but after what happened last night, his fear of insufficient firepower broke out. He wants to buy a long gun. Alina also wants to buy a long gun. According to Georgia law, there is no restriction on buying long guns, and no license is required. The 2 followed the advice of Bruce, a professional, and chose shotguns that suited them. Bruce bought an R. When the community environment deteriorates to a certain extent, they can only choose to take up arms. After practicing shooting for a whole morning, Martin told Alina on the way back, "Keep the gun safe. Don't let the idiot Hall get it. I suspect he will blow his head off." Alina snorted, "He's not as stupid as you." That night, another shooting occurred in the north of Clayton community. The fighting between gangs continued. After get off work, Martin simply slept in the living room of Carter's house with a shotgun. At breakfast in the morning, Hall complained, "We should take the initiative and blow up those bastards' heads." Lily sneered, "Your head will be blown up first." Elena, who has always been optimistic and cheerful, looked at her brother and sister, and was so heavy that she couldn't speak. Harris felt an inexplicable pressure, and suddenly raised his head. I will find a way to make money, and move you to a better community. This is the only way." Martin couldn't think of any other way. It's usually difficult to see patrolmen in this broken place, and the police are reluctant to come, even if they call the police. He asked Harris, "How are you going to make money?" Elena took over, "I will keep buying lottery tickets." Martin could only say that she is worthy of being Elena. But she went on to say, "I wrote down all the cocktail recipes you gave me, and have been practicing them." Martin asked Lily for paper and pen, and wrote down some more recipes for Elena. After breakfast, Martin sent Elena to the Methodist church. He remembered something and asked, "Is the Methodist church going to hold a large-scale training recently?" Elena said, "It's for stupid believers and their idiot children. It's at the Methodist training center where you picked me up last time." She reacted very quickly, "Are you going to do something again?" Martin thought for a moment and said, "Go and participate when you have time. Help me keep an eye out for Milton. I know him." Elena said, "He exudes a stench similar to the innate sin of people like me." She was very interested. "Do you want me to follow him secretly? That will help you more." Martin interrupted her, "You just attend the training peacefully, and pay attention to when Milton goes there. Don't do anything else. You can't do complicated things." Elena was so angry that her chest hurt. "My IQ crushes you, an idiot." Martin glanced at her rapidly rising and falling chest. "Okay, I admit that I can crush you." The Ford stopped in front of the lottery shop. Elena got out to buy lottery tickets and asked, "Are you free at noon?" Martin shook his head, "Probably not. I'm going to consult a patent lawyer and then go to the Freedom Club." Elena was surprised. "Patent lawyer?" She remembered, "You talked to Lily about handmade?" Martin said, "Almost. I'll go ask first." Chapter 38 Design Patents. Martin found a place to buy a few newspapers, checked the relevant information column, and made a few phone calls. He determined that one of the law firms could provide professional services and immediately went to the door. Martin was received by Gary Hodgson, a patent lawyer who started out as a patent agent. Hodgson first stated the patent consultation fee standard. Martin didn't say anything and went straight to the point. "I have a product and want to apply for a design patent, but how do I say the appearance of the product?" Hodgson simply reminded, "It must be an industrial product, and it must be a novel, original, and decorative design." Martin asked, "What about the appearance that exists in reality?" Hodgson asked, "Did you bring the product or drawings?" Martin shook his head and thought for a while. "For example, the appearance of the product is based on my brother as the prototype." Hodgson opened his mouth slightly and stared at this weirdo, thinking, "Are you kidding?" He reminded again, "Mr. Davis, we are discussing a very serious patent issue." Martin said seriously, "I'm serious." Hodgson thought for a while and said, "It is impossible to pass because it is not original and not novel enough." The more he talked, the more he felt wrong. Where the hell did this weirdo come from? Hodgson's professionalism made him hold back the urge to swear. He clenched his fist and shook it, like this. "It is common in real life and people have reached a consensus on the items. The appearance patent cannot be passed." This is not what Martin imagined. Hodgson continued, "If you insist on doing it, it will only waste time and money." Martin understood another meaning. "Is patent application time consuming and labor intensive?" Hodgson said, "It takes an average of 19 months from the submission of the application to the approval of the appearance patent, and an average of 24 months for the invention patent." "Thank you, lawyer." Martin asked Hodgson for a business card, paid the consulting fee, and left the office. Back in the car, Martin held the steering wheel, but did not start the car. It is normal for the assumption to be different from the reality. In this case, some adjustments need to be made according to reality. Martin drove to Duluth, a satellite city of Atlanta, where a group of import and export trading companies are concentrated. They do both import and export and accept small commodity customization. Martin originally thought of the cheap Yiwu-made products, but after asking several Chinese business companies, it would take a month just to transport them here, so he finally chose a local trading company. After contacting more than a dozen companies, Martin circled a few and asked for their contact information. Then he rushed to the ATL Freedom Club. He had already made an appointment with Kelly Gray. When he arrived at the hall where the last press conference was held, Martin said something to the front desk staff and went up to the third floor. The Freedom Club staff were coming in and out, very busy. Martin entered the office, where Kelly Gray was signing documents. "Wait a moment. You go ahead." Martin sat on the sofa in the reception area and picked up a newspaper. The Atlanta Free Press is the most famous liberal media in Georgia. The report on the third page of the newspaper mentioned Milton, whom Martin had previously paid attention to, and berated Milton to the point of being worthless. Martin found the reason from the Constitution on the same day. Milton claimed that the Methodist Church was actively carrying out skills training to help women find jobs, and angrily criticized the Freedom Club for only talking big and not doing practical things. After processing the documents, Kelly Gray came to the reception area and handed a file bag to Martin. "The procedures have been completed. Starting this week, you will also serve as a social investigator for the Freedom Society." She emphasized, "There is a salary, $200 a week." "Thank you, Kelly. This will make me a little more financially comfortable." Martin knew what Kelly was concerned about and responded immediately, "I came here today because of one more thing. Last time we talked about it, Milton from the Methodist Church is attacking us again, and I'm going to launch a counterattack against him. If you want to make a gun, you must be aware of it, not to mention that he has other ideas." Several directors of the Freedom Society had focused on Milton, and Kelly was very concerned. "Tell me about it," Martin said. "All I can think of are some stupid ways. Recently, everyone in the club is very annoyed. I persuaded the boss to mobilize the club members to protest to the Methodist Society, and the target is Milton." He took the initiative to hand the gun to Kelly. Kelly of course held it tightly and thought for a while. "Okay." After the two of them had contact several times, Martin specifically learned about Kelly Gray and the Freedom Society. "These days, I have been thinking about it over and over again, and I have some ideas, but I'm not sure if they will work." Kelly Gray smiled. "Don't worry, I won't laugh at you. Let me make it clear first, you are not allowed to laugh." Martin repeated his thoughts in an appropriate way. Kelly Gray thought it was funny at first, like a low-level gangster playing rogue, but after hearing the rest, he became serious. She stared at Martin. "What do you think? What do you want?" Martin scratched his head, as if he had difficulty speaking. He hesitated for a moment before saying, "Don't be afraid of you laughing at me. I'm tired of being poor. I want to make money." He tried his best to use the surrounding social environment. The night before yesterday, there was a serious shooting in the Clayton community, killing 5 people. The crime scene was only 100 meters away from my residence. When I got off work at night, I saw with my own eyes that 2 dealers in the same community were shot into a hornet's nest by shotguns. Kelly nodded. "I saw the news. You should be more careful. I bought a long gun for self-defense, but it's not a solution." Martin pursed his lips and paused for a moment, then sighed. "I'm still young and don't want to die in a stinky ditch. I want to move to a safer community." Kelly Gray felt a little sympathetic, but after thinking about it, she found that what Martin said was too involved. Now she is the one who is worried. "Martin, you have given me a difficult problem. The path Kelly Gray chose is actually a social ladder. Her family's limited resources were all invested in her 2 brothers. Now there is a vice chairman position vacant in the ATL Freedom Club, and she has her eyes on this position." Martin guessed her concerns and said at the right time, "Kelly, you don't have to get involved in these low-end things. I will lead the others to do it. If there is any problem, it will be the responsibility of the Beast House. If public opinion rises, you can give it a gentle push. If it doesn't rise, you don't have to do anything." Kelly Gray stood up, walked back and forth a few steps, and made up her mind. "Remember one thing, don't cause personal injury. Everyone in our club is civilized, such as me and Old Bull. Martin said the truth, and then tentatively asked, Kelly, you know, we are all poor guys. The boss is stingy and mostly provides spiritual support. Kelly went to the desk, took out a form, and handed it to Martin. Fill it out. Public gatherings require an application process. I will let Ella assist you with the procedures. The Freedom Club has special event funds, so getting support is not a problem. Martin was more motivated. Brothers don't have to go out to work part-time during the day and can launch protests continuously. Kelly said, make it bigger. Martin has no worries about attracting people. If free food is provided, I can find another 100 people. Kelly nodded. Okay. After filling out the form, Martin followed Ella to several offices. Through the channels of the Freedom Association, the assembly permit was quickly approved. Kelly was not free at noon, so Martin simply invited Ella to lunch and called Andrew. During the conversation, they talked about the crew coming from Hollywood. Andrew and Benjamin are currently doing preparations. A production team of the project will come in advance soon to arrange matters after the crew arrives in Atlanta. The female producer from the LA Freedom Association is coming. Martin calculated the time. In the afternoon, Martin called Bruce and Hart to drive a car each to pick up materials for the assembly from the Freedom Association. The Freedom Association holds assemblies all year round, and the relevant items are readily available. Martin asked for materials related to the House of the Beast, and they can also find partners to make special orders. Just wait a day. Martin went back to make samples of the things first. Chapter 39 Kettle. When Martin went out for a run in the morning, he brought money with him. He found new dealers around the community. It was easy to identify. The dealers in the past were basically white, but now they are all black. Martin had no intention of dealing with them, so he took the initiative to bypass them and came to the north of the community. He found Scott carrying a bag and walking towards his grocery store with crab steps. Injured again? Martin asked curiously. Scott stopped moving and said, I found a new job with a high income. Tell you, idiot. Scott Carter. I will be rich soon. Martin didn't know what happened specifically, but he had some guesses. He was too lazy to say more and asked, do you have clay for making models in your store? Scott walked towards the store with crab steps. Yes, come with me. What are you going to do? Clumsy idiot. Martin said vaguely, make small toys to make people happy. An hour later, at Carter's house, Martin cleaned the table, opened the clay bag, pulled off a large piece, and kneaded it according to his thoughts. But the difference between thinking and making was too big. Pink clay, from Scott's place. Harris came over after washing the dishes, and looked at what Martin had made. It was a big ball at the bottom and a line on the top. At first glance, it looked like a coiled snake. He exclaimed, Martin, did you make a piece of shit? Martin stopped. Is it that bad? Harris shook his head and looked at Martin as if he was mentally retarded. He turned around and shouted, Elena, Martin needs your help. Elena ran out of the room. Martin said seriously, you are not suitable. Elena said, I'm the best at handicrafts. She rolled up her sleeves and prepared to start. What do you want to do? Martin had no choice but to gesture 30 centimeters with his hands, about this height, the appearance, how to say, a complete version of a wooden fence. Elena looked at the lump Martin made and understood it instantly. I understand. Martin said again, I prepared a special kettle for the Freedom Association for the rally and protest. Elena's hands were very fast. She quickly made a prototype and then used a carving knife to modify it. Martin pointed to the top of the cone and said, add a straw here. Elena asked, are you sure this is a kettle? I don't know much, don't lie to me. Martin said seriously, of course it's a kettle. He pointed to the cylinder and said, design a line of words on it. I decide my life. Because of Martin, Elena has been paying attention to the Methodist Church and the Liberal Church recently, and has also been to the House of the Beast. She asked, is this design and slogan a special model for liberals? Martin said, I'm trying to make it a favorite of liberals and a special kettle. Elena was surprised. Do you understand business? Martin knows nothing about business. He used to be floating around, and he had never been involved in business. The kettle and slogan were all copied, and they were copied from the entertainment industry. In his previous life, after 2015, he had long forgotten the specific year, Kendall used such a water cup. As for the slogan, it was originally used by Hollywood Me Rabbit later. Unfortunately, the appearance of the kettle cannot be registered as an appearance patent. Elena brought a hairdryer and dried it as soon as possible. Martin continued to think about cashing in. Elena crossed her arms and said, "Idiot, what do you think?" Martin said simply, "First, I'm a true liberal. I need to be widely recognized, especially by liberals from California." Before he finished speaking, Elena's middle finger was waiting for him. Martin kept talking. "Second, sell it to liberals and make some money." Elena didn't understand this. "Are you sure?" Martin just nodded. The equal rights kettle was very important in the discussion with Kelly Gray. Elena said, "The straw must be removable so that customers can use it up and down." Martin was speechless. "You are wasting your talent here." He went to the next door to change into formal clothes, brought a briefcase, put the kettle in it, and said to Elena, "Where is the skirt I bought for you? Put it on. From now on, you are my assistant. Control your swearing." Elena changed her clothes and followed Martin out. The two went to the Merita Theater first. Through Jerome, they found a prop master who cooperated with the theater. They used the clay model as a basis and paid him to make a sample using hot melt resin. Jerome looked at the kettle with a strange shape and said, "How to make something like this?" Martin certainly wouldn't say it was for commercial use. He pointed at Elena and said, "Captain, she always misses my kindness and insists on making a daily necessity based on me." Elena cursed 1,000 times in her heart. Jerome looked at the kettle and suddenly felt a strong sense of inferiority. He felt tired and didn't want to talk. "Done. Let's go." Martin drove to Gilleth. Among the companies he had circled last time, he looked at their main products and talked with them. Martin found a suitable target, an import and export company called Gulf Trading, which has various kettles in its products. The company is not large, has been established for many years, and has a good reputation. The boss is named Rizade, who speaks English with an accent. "Mr. Davis, we can definitely meet your needs in terms of small commodities. I wonder which product you are interested in." Martin said directly, "I want to customize a kettle." Rizade asked, "What are your specific requirements?" "The price should be as low as possible. The materials should be as good as possible, including the shell, and it must meet the relevant standards of the United States." Martin was worried that, if the product was used by everyone, what would happen if it was poisoned? Rossard pondered for a moment and asked, "Do you have any samples or drawings?" Martin took out the sample made by the prop master. When the pink special kettle was placed on the table, Rossard's mouth twitched slightly. "How can I take this kettle out?" Rossard took the cup and looked at it carefully. "This material is not good. The sample is made casually." Martin was very direct. "The first batch needs 10,000 pieces. You quote a price." This was the number he estimated, based on the customers of the Beast House and the members of the Freedom Association. Rossard calculated briefly. $5. Martin shook his head. A Chinese company across the street quoted $1.5. He held up a finger. "This is just the first batch." Rossard calculated the cost. "Our factory has never produced this kind of kettle, and the mold opening fee is extremely high." After some arguing, because Martin required that the goods must arrive within half a month, the final price per unit was $3, including customs clearance, transportation, and storage costs. Martin called the law firm he went to last time, and a professional lawyer came to help draft the contract. He paid a deposit of $4,500. On the way back in the car, Elena's suppressed worry broke out. "Idiot, you can't sell the $30,000 worth of goods. You will become a pauper again, and you will have to face a damn business lawsuit. The last payment has a 2-month payment period, so it should be fine." Martin had already considered it. "I'm trying my best to stimulate the desire of the Freedom Club to buy. Even if they don't want it, I can still sell it in the club. They will definitely be interested." He turned around and smiled. "If we fail, the worst that can happen is that we will go on the ring stage." Chapter 40 Civilized people demonstrate. Just after 10 a.m., cars started to drive into the public parking lot near Peachtree Street Plaza. including Martin and Bruce. More than 20 people from the Beast House, wearing vests with the club's name printed on them, dragged various rally materials, and arrived at the destination. Martin shouted, "Sons, show off our prestige." The people in the club responded loudly and got busy. Hart suddenly ran over with a flag. "Dad Martin, hang yourself up. It will definitely be majestic." Carrington, Ivan and others started to make a noise. Hurry up, hang Dad Martin on the tree." Martin looked around and took out his trick. "You bunch of idiots. Whoever talks too much, I will deduct his subsidy, both from the club and the Freedom Society." These guys were honest. The 2 subsidies added up to more than $100 a day. "The beauties are here." Hart got excited. 2 buses stopped on the side of the road. Led by Ella and Monica, nearly 100 women in their 20s and 30s got off the buses and came to meet up with the people from the Beast House Club. Carrington said, "Some of them look familiar." Hart recognized them, the ones who went crazy at the club last time. Monica came over, hugged Bruce and gave him a passionate kiss. The people in the Beast House kept whistling. Martin saw that the men and women with strong hormones were not doing their job properly, so he shouted, "Get down to business. When the party is over, there will be plenty of time for you to mess around. When there are too many people, it will be chaotic, and it is difficult to control the situation." Martin could only use his trick again. Whoever messes around during work will have his free food withheld. Finally, there was some order. Flags were erected, banners were hung, and posters were held up. Martin asked Ella, "When will the media or reporters arrive?" Ella said, "It will take a while." Martin winked at Bruce, and the bastards in the Beast House contacted their families and friends and asked them to call the news hotline. A few $dozen is not a small amount. Bruce frowned. "Man, you're not doing well. No one cares about us." Martin said, "Why don't you run naked here? You will definitely become famous." Bruce subconsciously lifted his clothes back, and the gun bag was exposed. Martin pulled it back. "Old Bruce, it's not suitable to be a civilized person now." Bruce said, "I just want to see how smelly the shit under your skull is." Martin took out his mobile phone, and Alina called. Milton left the training center. He took an old black Lincoln Continental. Seeing Martin hang up the phone, Bruce asked, "Is the son of a bitch coming soon?" "He will be here soon." Martin said to the stupid sculptures in the club, "Guys, the bastard who insulted us is coming soon. Get ready." He looked at Ivan and Golden Retriever. "You two can blow as loud as you can. Old Bruce, find a place to hide your big head. It's not time for you to appear yet." The black Lincoln Continental was heading towards the headquarters. In the car, Milton gave instructions to his assistant. "Publish the article as soon as possible. Expand the scale of the new round of free skills training, and let the whole United States know that we are the ones who really do practical things." The assistant asked, "I just received a call. The people from the Beast House are protesting in front of the headquarters." Milton didn't pay much attention to low-end things. "Beast House, the Gigolo Club, a new knife." The assistant explained briefly. Milton nodded slightly and said casually, "Let the people below find an opportunity to make them look bad." The Lincoln Continental approached the main entrance of the Methodist Church. Milton turned his head slightly and saw the protesters in front of the main entrance. The words Beast House were printed on the man's body. Milton took a look and turned his sight, and then heard an extremely sharp whistle. Looking for the sound, the protesters put up a new banner. "Two ex-wives cheated because you were useless. A man who can't even handle his wife can't be the head of the family. Jessica and Lynn greet you, useless man." Although they didn't mention the names, Milton understood it immediately. He recalled the most embarrassing experience, that his 2 ex-wives not only cheated on him, but also brought men home and fooled around on his bed in front of their wedding photos. The most hardline conservatives are not formed for no reason. In the crowd of demonstrators, 2 men suddenly turned around, took off their pants, and exposed their buttocks. One was written with Lina, and the other was written with Jessica. The assistant secretly winked at the driver, who sped up and entered the headquarters gate. Milton got out of the car and looked like he was walking towards the office building as usual. The whistle at the door kept coming, reminding him of what his 2 ex-wives had done. But Milton has experienced storms and can keep a calm mind. After a commotion outside, Martin said, "Hart, Carrington, Stop hanging around here. Hart shook his butt and pulled up his pants. Martin, Dad, give me an extra serving of oxtail rice for lunch. Martin said generously, don't worry, we have everything. Come up with something new tomorrow. If you can't come up with one, I'll let old Boo put oxtails on you. Hart thought for a while and said, don't we have photos of his 2 ex-wives? Make them into posters and hang them on the street lights at the door. That son of a bitch will definitely vomit blood. Others echoed, good idea. Someone else said, hang up the current one too. Very good, very good. Martin said, when you are arrested by the APD, no one will bail you out. Ella saw a TV interview car coming over and reminded, be serious, the reporters are coming. She thought to herself, it was indeed a low-end bureau, and Miss Gray was not suitable to appear. Martin said, Hart, tie your belt quickly, do you really want to sell your but to the reporters? As the first newspaper came over, many more reporters followed. The Freedom Club has special arrangements for media reporters, and Ella and Martin were interviewed separately. Martin mainly mentioned the Beast House, advocating that the Beast House is a symbol of freedom. In the afternoon, when Milton's Lincoln Continental came out, a sharp whistle sounded again. Milton remained calm, as if nothing had happened. Today's rally ended here. On the way back, Martin and Bruce got on the same car. Old Bruce, I'll watch you these nights. The bar is up to you. Bruce asked, are you sure he will go to the Wild Forest bar? Martin said, not sure. I got the news that Milton goes to that bar for a drink more than 10 days a month. Bruce said, why did I believe your lies and do such a shitty thing? Martin was so shameless. You said that there is shit in my head, and you happen to be a piece of shit too. Only shit and shit can last forever. Chapter 41, driving people crazy. Atlanta, Decatur. During dinner, seeing the watery eyes of his third wife Eliza, Milton felt an inexplicable tightening in his heart. His waist creaked, and his brother became slugs. He put down his knife and fork and said, I'm going out for a while. I have an appointment to talk about something. I'll be back later. Eliza's eyes were dry. She stared at her husband leaving with disappointment on her cheeks. Milton drove an Audi and came to the nearby Wild Forest bar. When he was in a bad mood or Eliza expressed some needs, he liked to come here for a drink and go back late at night. Milton pushed open the door of the bar, came to the bar, and said, Hans, a glass of whiskey, the same as usual. Bruce retracted his gaze through a person and confirmed that the person coming was Milton. He boasted to his new drinking buddy, you ask me why I like this place. Because I always have good luck here and always meet beautiful women. He came here for 2 consecutive nights and finally waited for Milton. His drinking buddy didn't believe it. You're bragging. How come I've never encountered that? Don't disbelieve me. Bruce described in detail. That was a few years ago. A beautiful red-haired girl was drinking here. I chatted with her, and she actually took the initiative to ask me out. She said her husband was not doing well. His drinking buddy shook his head. There's no such thing. Bruce took a sip of wine and continued, maybe you've seen her. She has a red mole on the left corner of her mouth. The drinking buddy was from this area and was stunned for a moment. I think I've seen her before. Hearing about the red mole on the corner of the mouth, Milton's eyes unconsciously turned to Bruce. Bruce dared to use mortar shells to attack the British and ignored them directly. Her name is Lina. She took me to a nearby villa. We enjoyed a romantic night in her wedding room. A few days later, she actually took the initiative to call me and ask me to go to her house again. The drinking buddy gradually believed it. You came again. Bruce laughed. She told me that after you arrived, you should go through the back door. You bastard. The sudden roar interrupted the two people's conversation. Milton was furious and could no longer bear it. Among the people who cheated with that bastard, there was also a scumbag like you. He rushed over to hit Bruce. Bruce pushed Milton away. Are you sick? Milton struggled to get up, and Bruce casually lifted his coat. Don't move. Milton was moved by the temperament of a civilized person. Milton stopped moving. Psycho. Bruce clapped his hands with an unhappy face, walked out of the bar, and suddenly turned back, as if he had just understood. I remember. You are Lina's husband. She and I are under your wedding photo. Many people in the bar guessed it. At this time, all eyes fell on Milton. Milton felt indescribably complicated and vowed never to come to this bar again. Bruce went out, looked back from time to time, walked a distance, got in the car and left Exeter. After a while, Milton walked out of the bar alone, with a fire in his heart. Back in the Audi, just as he was about to start the engine, Milton suddenly thought of his wife at home, and took his hand back. Going back was also torture. He sat quietly in the car, and closed his eyes. They can't just obey the will of the head of the family. Late at night, the Beast House Club was over, and the male and female customers who had successfully hooked up made an appointment to leave. The failed male customer slowly left. Martin cleaned up the stage, and went out. After get off work, on the second floor of the club, Vincent raised his cowboy hat, and looked at Blonde's mouth. "What's the matter?" Blonde touched his swollen lips. Martin asked Ivan and I to blow the whistle these days. We blew too hard and our mouths were swollen. Vincent asked about his concern. "How is the situation over there?" Many media and reporters have come one after another, and Martin has been speaking for the club. Blonde said everything he heard and saw. In order to save the club's expenses, he got sponsorship from the Liberty Club. The materials and food are all the responsibility of the Liberty Club. Vincent was quite satisfied. He did not misjudge Martin. "I know, you go back." Sophia, who had been silent all the time, suddenly spoke. "A smart man like Martin Davis cannot be kept under control by this kind of idiot." "I know." Vincent took out a cigar. "As long as he can bring me profits, and does not harm my interests, do I need to deal with him?" He roasted the cigar. "Martin gave me some ideas. I plan to open an hourly hotel and special goods store nearby. I believe the business will not be bad, and I can do more accounts." "Good idea, I support you." Sophia stood up. "I won't talk to you anymore. I didn't come here to talk to you about these boring things. I want to see my darling." Vincent saw Sophia's strong body and reminded, "Don't hurt him." Sophia turned back, veins and muscles protruding on her neck. "I can't hurt him enough." On West Street, Martin got into the Ford car, saw Bruce sitting in the passenger seat, and asked, "Did you get anything tonight?" "I guess he wants to kill me," Bruce said briefly. Martin praised, "Old Bruce, you are a genius. No one can compare to you, man. You have a first-class appearance, but it is full of rubbish." Bruce asked, "Who did you learn this from?" Martin almost reflexively said, "Jack Davis is the most talented person in Atlanta. Tell this shit to others." Bruce stopped asking these questions. "A normal person would go crazy if you do this to him. He has also experienced 2 wives cheating on him." Martin didn't need to make up high-sounding words. "I'm also considering the flow of customers to the club. I can make more money for you." "Do you spend money to buy a car? Do you spend money to support Monica?" "Buying run." Bruce interrupted him. "You stinky piece of shit, shut up." Martin shrugged. Bruce said, "Man, since I met you, I found that I'm actually a good person." Martin said, "I'm also a good person. Don't refute me. Ask Hart and Kirrington. Ask everyone in the club." Bruce knew the result without asking. A bunch of good sons. The next morning, Martin called Barkley and made an appointment to meet at the old place. He and Bruce rushed over together. The Methodist Association was about to hold a training event, and the news agency sent invitations to many media outlets. The Star also received a copy. Martin said, "We are friends. I won't make it difficult for you. I'm just attending the news conference for you for free." Buckley was very embarrassed. "This isn't good." Martin raised his hand and twirled his fingers like he did when they first met. "I never let my friends down." This time, without Martin's reminder, Bruce pulled his arm back, proving that he was a civilized person who did things in a civilized manner. They had cooperated twice, and one more time wouldn't be a big deal. Buckley no longer hesitated. "I'll deliver the stuff to you tomorrow morning. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels." Chapter 42. Accumulated Anger. Early in the morning, Martin drove out of the Clayton community and came to the parking lot near Highway 265. After waiting for less than 10 minutes, Barkley drove over. The two cars stopped together. Barkley got out of the car and handed the bag in his hand to Martin. "Everything is inside." Martin opened the bag. The recorder, camera, press card and interview card were all there. He took out the envelope and stuffed it into Barkley's hand. Barkley quickly counted them and smiled with satisfaction. Martin said, "Wait for my call." "It's okay, don't worry." Barkley was a little worried and reminded him slightly, "You won't do anything illegal, right?" Martin said, "I'm a civilized person. I will only participate in the Methodist press conference in the name of your newspaper." Barkley nodded, got in the car and left. After thinking about it, he always felt that something was wrong. Martin drove to the club, entered the backstage dressing room, and took out the prepared cosmetics. Bruce pushed the door open and asked, "Why don't you let that reporter go?" Martin opened his MacBook bag. "Even if you give him money, he may not ask questions in a way that completely infuriates a person." Bruce said, "Man, I have a feeling that working with you will be over soon." Martin asked back, "A civilized man who dares to use mortar shells to fight the British is afraid of a man whose brothers are not useful? I'm afraid you'll poke the earth into pieces." Bruce saw that Martin was proficient in MacBook. "You can do this?" Martin shrugged. "I'm an actor, Jack Davis." Bruce interrupted him. "I know that Jack Davis is the most versatile person in the United States, and you are his bastard son." Martin snapped his fingers. "Congratulations, civilized man. You have learned a new skill." Quick answer. MacBook was one of the few gains he had from his many years of acting career in his previous life. After Martin put on his MacBook, a wig, a pair of brown glasses, and a fitted old-fashioned suit, he looked like a conservative and dull middle-aged man. If you were not familiar with him, it would be difficult to recognize him. This was specially prepared by Martin, based on his conservative style. The two got into the Ford car, and Bruce drove the car to the training center and said, "Be careful, don't get beaten to death on the spot. If the shit in your brain falls out, the whole world will know that you have no brains." Martin took out his press card. "I'm a reporter now." The car stopped near the training center. Martin got out of the car, raised his camera, and took pictures of the crowd in the Beast House. When he arrived at the door, Martin mixed in with other reporters, showed his press card and interview card, and successfully entered the training center. Martin also saw a few acquaintances, a female reporter from a TV station and a male reporter from the Constitution, who had interviewed him at the door of the Beast House. Just in case, he automatically stayed away. The press conference was held in the hall of the training center, and Ms. Jennifer directed the volunteers to set up the venue. Elena took over a job and put the names of the media participating in the press conference on the backs of the chairs. She put the name of the Star News in the first row. Jennifer said, "At this time, the news conference will have a question and answer session, and the microphone needs to be handed over to the reporter who asks the question. One person on each side." Elena immediately stood up. "Ma'am." Jennifer remembered Elena, who had reported the Beast House, and nodded. "Okay, the left side is up to you." On the other side, media reporters from Atlanta and Georgia, including Martin, were preparing to enter the press conference. Two staff members of the training center came over to hand out lunch coupons, the kind that can be used at any time in nearby high-end restaurants. The intention is self-evident. Martin then put the coupon in his pocket, mixed in with dozens of reporters, entered the venue, and quickly found a seat in the first row. The press conference kicked off, hosted by Jennifer, and a family representative who participated in the training came on stage to express his gratitude to the Methodist Association. A member of the Atlanta City Council highly praised their work. Milton took the stage to give a speech, angrily denouncing the ridiculous remarks and behavior of the liberals, and reiterated his views. When it came to the question and answer session, Jennifer first called on the reporter from the Atlanta Constitution. "This is the best-selling local newspaper in Atlanta." The questions asked by the Constitution reporter were standard, and Milton responded easily. "Next question." Jennifer scanned dozens of reporters, including Martin. The reporters in the first two rows caught her eye first. The middle-aged male reporter, who was dressed in old-fashioned dull temperament and conservative dress, had just caught her attention, and she immediately pointed to him. This reporter in a great suit. Elena tried to be more natural, and handed the microphone to Martin. Martin took the microphone and said, "Mr. Milton, you are a legend in Atlanta. Your ideas and propositions illuminate the land of Georgia." As soon as these words came out, Milton's tense heartstrings when facing reporters relaxed a little, and a smile appeared on his old-fashioned face. Just when people were relaxed, the knife Martin handed out stabbed into the most painful part of their hearts. "Are these caused by your two ex-wives cheating?" Martin didn't wait for people to react, and said very quickly, "I have interviewed Jessica and Lina. They said that they cheated because of your incompetence. You couldn't satisfy them, but you refused to divorce them. They had no choice but to cheat with other men in your bedroom and under your wedding photos." All his words were directed at Milton's incompetence, and he attributed Milton's ideas and propositions to his incompetence. "So, your incompetence has caused your extreme conservatism, right? Under normal circumstances, Milton's experience are enough to ensure that he can face these vicious questions with a calm mood. But the bastards in the Beast House have been protesting and provoking day after day this week. The cheating partner of his second wife Lina humiliated Milton in public at the bar, and the news spread like wildfire. Not only his barmates, but even his neighbors in the community were looking at him strangely. How can a man endure it? Milton even lost his safe haven to avoid his wife's entanglement. Jennifer gestured to the people on both sides of the venue, asking them to quickly take away Martin's microphone. "It's time for your question." Elena was the first to rush forward and grab the microphone from Martin. She seemed to be struggling with Martin, but her tall body blocked the two male staff members. Milton's scars, which had healed, were gradually revealed these days, and now they were torn and bleeding. Martin's hand loosened, and the microphone was snatched away by Elena. Although it was a little late, Jennifer was quite relieved to see Elena snatch the microphone back. The press conference could not go on. The reporters had received enough explosive materials. There was no point in asking questions. The right thing to do was to go back and finish the manuscript. Jennifer said a few polite words and announced the end of the press conference. The reporters rushed out, and some of them made phone calls while walking, asking newspapers or TV stations to reserve pages and news time. Two male staff members kept protecting Martin from going out. With so many reporters present, they couldn't really do anything. After coming out of the training center gate, Martin quickened his pace and turned to the nearby parking lot. Bruce was standing in front of the Ford waiting for him, very disappointed. "You were not beaten to death." Martin got in the car. "I'm a civilized person and I only do civilized things. They were very polite to send me out." Bruce started the car. "Where are we going?" Martin took off his wig and put it away. "Go back and take off my macupe." Back at the club, Martin took off his macupe and put away all his things. The meal coupon was still there. He took it out and handed it to Bruce. "High-end buffet restaurant. You can bring a female companion." Bruce snatched it away and exclaimed, "I really admire you, you stinky piece of shit. You screwed someone and took the benefits." Martin said, "I regret it now, and I want to take it back." When Bruce stuffed it into his pocket, he pulled his coat back, revealing the gun bag. "Are you sure?" The civilized man appeared, and Martin took the initiative to give in. "It's my treat." The two left the club and went to Highway 265. In the parking lot near the Star, they waited for Barkley. Martin returned the things to him and said, "I have a big news for you. Listen to it." Buckley turned on the speaker of the recorder and listened carefully. Bruce also pricked up his ears and listened, glancing at Martin from time to time. This guy's head was really full of stinky shit. But, it's really big news. Buckley was very excited. It's a pity that it's not exclusive. Many stories automatically formed in his mind. This will trigger a new round of public opinion wars, the most intense one. Martin asked, "Based on your professional experience, where is the focus of public opinion?" Buckley immediately replied, "Of course it is freedom and men's brothers. Topics in this regard are easy to heat up." "Thanks, Mr. Buckley." Martin was about to withdraw. "I wish he win the Pulitzer Prize soon." Buckley returned to his car and hurried back to the newspaper office to finish his manuscript. For a long time to come, he would have to make up stories. No, there would be no shortage of material for news reports. That night, what Milton said on the spot appeared on TV news. With such words, it would be hard not to cause controversy. Newspapers and other print media were arguing. Liberal and conservative media attacked each other, and Milton, the person involved, not only did not restrain himself, but also reorganized his remarks at the press conference and published a more incisive column. Public opinion in Atlanta exploded. The conservatives have been deeply rooted in Georgia for many years, and they simply took advantage of the situation to stir up a storm of public opinion and draw the focus of all media attention to the conservatives. The Atlanta council elections are not far away, and the lack of sufficient public attention will have serious consequences. Chapter 43. She's from Hollywood. At the Atlanta Freedom Association headquarters, 5 directors and the chairman Julia all arrived to hold an emergency meeting to discuss the current public opinion situation. Several representatives of the political liberals also attended the meeting. Julia sat at the head of the conference table. Milton's remarks are both positive and negative, which is not terrible. What is terrible is that the focus of public opinion is completely on the conservatives. The Atlanta council election is coming soon. Without sufficient public attention, what is the meaning of the Freedom Association? Kelly Gray knew very well that the financial backers behind would not agree. Julia asked a middle-aged man, Jamie, what suggestions does Councilor Erica have? The middle-aged man said, the councilor thinks that the lack of public attention is terrible. Please respond strongly immediately. Georgia is already dominated by conservative forces. We have finally opened up the situation. A middle-aged director took over. We need a march, but there is no public opinion explosion point. Julia looked around at her subordinates. You can come to me if you have any ideas. As soon as the meeting was over, Kelly Gray followed Julia into the chairman's office and took out the sample Martin gave her from her bag. This thing just fulfilled the key point of Milton's speech. Everyone in the Freedom Society held one at the rally, and the effect was absolutely amazing. After a long conversation, Julia nodded. You did a great job, Kelly. I have always been optimistic about you, and you didn't let me down. She immediately contacted the political and social forces behind her and prepared a large rally. At the same time, she reminded Kelly, keep your phone open. I need you to go with me to meet with Councilor Erica tonight or tomorrow morning. Kelly Gray was overjoyed. She came out of the office and immediately called Martin. Has the goods arrived? Martin replied, I'm going to pick them up. Kelly Gray briefly explained the situation of the Freedom Society and looked at the diamond watch. I'm going to pick someone up at the airport. You pick up the goods and send them directly to Gray Film and Television Company. We will meet there. She saw the opportunity to take down the vice president. Martin was the key, so she specifically said, some time ago, she said she wanted to introduce a friend to you. She is coming today. She is a Hollywood producer. Don't you want to be an actor? On the other side, Martin hung up the phone, randomly selected a box and opened it, took out several boxes inside, and checked the kettle inside. The workmanship is much better than the temporary work of the prop master. Rizade came over and said, the best materials are used, and they meet all the indicators. Load it. Martin checked the quantity, settled the payment with Gulf Trading Company, and paid the second payment of $15,500. The remaining balance can be paid within the account period. Martin drove the car in front to lead the way, followed by 2 vans, and headed straight to Gray Films. Andrew was waiting in the company's warehouse. As soon as Martin arrived, he immediately unloaded the goods and put them into the warehouse. In the warehouse, Andrew was a little excited because the boss called him and said that he had got important supplies for the Freedom Society. What does it mean to give him such an important job? The boss trusts him. Martin threw one to Andrew. Kettle, suitable for the crew, to use when going out. The goods given by the trading company are slightly more than the scheduled quantity. And mine? Andrew was very happy and immediately opened the package. When he saw the kettle, he was stunned. If you bring this thing to the company or the crew, I guarantee that no one will watch the action scenes of the male and female protagonists. He said, this is not suitable for men, right? Martin deliberately lowered his voice. We are friends. I will tell you a secret in advance. The Freedom Society is about to hold the largest rally of the year. This kettle is the key. Andrew hugged the kettle, bit the straw, and took 2 empty sips. I fell in love with it at first sight. 3 cars drove to Gray Film and Television Company. in the BMW 7 at the head. In addition to Kelly Gray, there was also a woman of similar age. Louise Mayer had a blonde shawl on her shoulders, a delicately made up face, and a pair of black rimmed glasses. Coming from the airport, I encountered many small group rallies supporting the Methodist Church or the Freedom Society along the way. Kelly Gray said, the Atlanta Council elections in the second half of the year have been a bit fierce recently. Louise Mayer picked up the newspaper in her hand and shook it. I see, you actually lost to those stubborn conservatives in public opinion. Kelly Gray said, this is Georgia, not California. Louise Mayer suddenly laughed. That conservative is right. We need that thing. It is not comparable to fakes. But he is wrong about one thing. When and where we need it, and who needs it, we have the final say. She is from Hollywood. If we want to use it, we will find a great handsome guy to use it. If we want to throw it away after use, we can throw it away. If we like it, we can use it a few more times. Do you want me to prepare a red sofa for you? Kelly Gray said deliberately, there are many handsome men in Atlanta who want to be stars. Louise Mayer waved her hand and said something she cared about. How are you going to respond? Kelly Gray said with some complacency, you can't think of a way. The car arrived at the company and she said, let's go. I'll take you to see the good things. The two went upstairs to Kelly's CEO's office. As soon as they entered the room, they saw Martin waiting in the reception room. Kelly asked, have the goods arrived? Martin pointed to the rectangular box on the low table and said, all 10,000 pieces have arrived. To prevent defective products, the supplier gave 100 more. Kelly took out the kettle and looked at it carefully. Well made. Louise took off her glasses, hung them on her lapel, strode over and said, which genius came up with this thing? She took the kettle, took a quick look, grabbed the straw, pulled it off, and instantly understood. It can be used both up and down. A genius design. Martin looked at Louise Mel curiously. Only an old pervert could understand it at a glance. Kelly turned her eyes to Martin. The genius you are talking about is here. She introduced the two. This is Louise, my good friend, a producer from Hollywood. This is Martin, a social investigator of the Freedom Society, an actor who is as good at acting as he is at appearance. Hearing the latter words, Louise looked at Martin with interest. Martin seemed not to notice. Also, there is a surprise. I'll tell you later. Kelly Gray talked about the parade planned by the Freedom Association. Louise, you are a veteran in this area in Los Angeles. What do you think? Louise's chest rose and fell rapidly with laughter, and the buttons of her shirt would fall off at any time. She picked up the kettle, deliberately squeezed and loosened it, and stroked it up and down, saying as she played, thousands of people drinking water from this thing together. It's a very creative response. I guarantee that your old Freedom Association and Georgia liberals will become the focus of attention across the United States, and public opinion and news will explode. Kelly also laughed. I thought of the same as you. Louise understood her old friend. This is not an idea you can come up with. Kelly signaled with her eyes again. Martin thought of it. He is an outstanding fighter. Louise was like an old pervert. Her 5 slender fingers flexibly rubbed the kettle. The mouth of the kettle with a straw pulled out, and air kept blowing on her face, spraying her blue eyes like a pool of water, which looked very indecent. She stared at Martin with a smile on her face. Genius, how did you come up with that? Martin vaguely grasped some of this man's characteristics, and deliberately put on a serious face, and told the facts he made up. Liberals have been repeatedly attacked and subjected to domestic violence. I think a self-defense weapon that can be integrated into daily life is needed. He deliberately came to Louise, took the kettle from her hand, and swung it twice. Look, grab the head, swing it up, and hit the person with the base. If you hit the head, it will not only hurt, but also cause mental damage. It is also easy to carry, and easy to hide, and the opponent will not be prepared. Louise's smile became even bigger. Martin, do you often tell jokes seriously? Her eyes fell on the words on the kettle. I'm the master of my own life. That's what you thought. Kelly answered for Martin. Yes, he thought. Louise asked Martin very seriously, can it be authorized to the LA Freedom Association? Of course. Martin was about to receive a large sum of money, and with the confidence, he could look further ahead. I will not set up any obstacles, nor will I try to register. All 3 groups can use it. Louise nodded. On behalf of the LA Freedom Club, I would like to express my gratitude to you. Martin is an excellent actor. You found him a role in the crew. There is no better way to thank him than this. Kelly suddenly interrupted. Louise turned her head and raised her eyebrows at Kelly, as if asking, did you sleep with him? Kelly didn't seem to understand and was indifferent. Grey Company is cooperating with Louise's crew, and the money is good. Georgia's preferential policies can attract one Hollywood crew, and will attract the next one. Louise is Kelly's most stable relationship in Hollywood. Kelly called Louise as soon as she tasted the paper airplane. Martin told her that he would make more new cocktails. Kelly went to Martin for fun, not only because he was interesting. The crew is indeed recruiting some actors in Atlanta. The friend spoke up, and Louise couldn't refuse. The person on the other side was indeed interesting, and he was one of their own. She leaned back on the sofa, put on black-rimmed glasses, and all the frivolity on her face disappeared, replaced by seriousness. Martin, you improvise a part. Martin didn't remember this love movie without action, and he didn't have a specific purpose. After a little thought, he ruffled his hair, crumpled his shirt, and came to Louise. He picked up the kettle, and he changed instantly. The muscles on his face seemed to be misplaced, and he turned from a sunny and handsome man into a hideous pervert, and his whole body exuded viciousness. There was no word, only rapid breathing, and the sound of the wind when the kettle was swung up was like an jam. Kelly had never found Martin so scary. Louise suddenly said, that's enough. Martin exhaled and put down the kettle. Louise said, next week the crew will send out a recruitment notice. You can find me at the crew's residence then. Martin replied, no problem. Kelly said, there is another surprise, but it will have to wait until after the parade. Louise asked, what surprise? Kelly deliberately kept her in suspense. Secret. Louise left quickly and went to the hotel to rest. Martin and Kelly Gray agreed on the payment for the goods, which was $13 per unit. Grey Company paid Martin $130,000 that day. As for what happened between Kelly Gray and the Freedom Society, Martin didn't ask at all. Even if you see many things clearly, you have to pretend to be confused. When the payment arrived, even though Martin was calm, he couldn't help but feel a little excited. The two major goals of this time, to really get to know Hollywood producers and to make a sum of money to guarantee basic living, were all achieved. I recommend The Old Driver in the group, Salt Dealer, Wild Rise, The Emperor is Panic, which is sobbing. If you like history, you can go and have a look. It's Monday, and I'm looking for all kinds of support. In addition, Monkey Brother has customized bookmarks, pens and jadeite accessories. When they are put on the shelves, there will be a first order lottery and a leader gift. Thank you Monkey Brother, Dogecoin Brother, HUI Brother and Kangsu Brother for your strong support, and beg the knees of the little brothers under the 4-bit guys. Chapter 44, Playing with Special Efforts. Atlanta is not hot in the summer, but Peachtree Street was extremely hot that day. Thousands of people put on uniform clothes and headed towards the Georgia building. Along the way, APD members were on standby. Hundreds of media reporters were excited. The TV stations that received the news early drove the TV broadcast vehicles over in the early morning. The slogans shouted by the crowd resounded through the hearts of the people. I'm the master of my own life. What was more attractive than the slogan was the pink kettle in their hands. The realistic shape, coquettish temperament, exaggerated size, and peculiar use produced a sensational effect. CNN, headquartered in Atlanta, broadcast the news live, and the TV picture spread across the United States. When 7 or 8,000 people, led by Congressman Erica, collectively used the kettle to drink water, then raised the kettle high, and shouted I'm the master of my own life. Not only the media reporters and conservative crowds on the scene were stunned, but also the TV viewers across the United States were shocked. Georgia is too crazy. Congresswoman Erica stepped onto the podium, tightly grasped the pink kettle, and shouted loudly, what we hold is not a kettle, but freedom. She held the straw in her mouth and took a sip. What we drink is not water, but the freedom we are born with. Maybe it was used last night, or maybe the straw was not installed firmly, and it fell to the ground with a plop. The kettle without the straw is more attractive. All the camera lenses turned to Congresswoman Erica, giving her a long close-up. In politics, People have long thrown away their face. Erica felt that she could make a sensation in the United States today. She held the kettle tightly with one hand like holding a lover, and made a victory gesture with the other hand. As long as it can increase exposure and influence, what does it matter? Kelly Gray, accompanied by President Julia, stood behind Congresswoman Erica. This was her first time to step onto the podium of a large event in Georgia. Councilor Erica stepped back from the front and stood beside Julia. She nodded to Kelly Gray. "You did a great job." Kelly said quickly, "I'll do my part." Looking from above, the media reporters were like crazy. Erica was very satisfied with the results of the event. Julia, the person who made the plan, should be rewarded in the name of the Freedom Society. This is a money society, and money is the best incentive. Julia nodded and said softly, "Kelly, you draw up the list and plan." In the past, this was the responsibility of the vice president. Kelly Gray was overjoyed. "I will come up with a plan immediately after the event." She stretched her neck to look for Martin in the crowd. There were quite a few men participating, but she couldn't find Martin at all. There were too many people, and the banner of the Beast House was not eye-catching at all. All the limelight was taken away by the kettle. Hart held the kettle, pulled it down and up, and said, "Which idiot came up with this kettle? It's so damn cheap." He asked Martin. "Martin, that idiot didn't design it based on himself, right? It's too exaggerated. How can he compete with you?" Martin warned, "Son, if you keep talking nonsense, I'll send you to Thailand." The rally lasted until noon, and the crowd gradually dispersed. The streets were full of people holding pink kettles, forming a beautiful landscape. If anyone questioned it, someone would immediately retort, "We are not holding kettles, we are holding freedom." Los Angeles, Louisiana Freedom Association headquarters. Chairman Caroline saw CNN end the live news broadcast in Atlanta and made a phone call. "Louise, was this event organized by the Georgians themselves?" "Yeah, it's interesting, so fun. The conservative and dull Georgians can actually come up with this kind of tricks." Caroline didn't quite understand. "They are more avant-garde than us. I can't understand it." Louise said, "The ATL Freedom Club has a genius. He is very creative. The kettle and slogan were all designed by him." Caroline thought for a moment. "He should come to Los Angeles. We are the ones standing at the forefront of the world." Louise hung up the phone, and the car door opened at this time, and Kelly Gray lowered her head and got into the car. She grabbed Louise's arm, her voice trembling with excitement. "Senator Erica and Chairman Julia will nominate me as vice chairman." Louise leaned back in her chair. "Are you so excited?" Kelly let go of her hand. "Although my family has some resources, they are all placed on my two brothers. I can only run a small company that dares not even shoot theater movies." Louise deliberately asked, "How do you plan to thank that Martin?" Kelly laughed. "He likes to be an actor and wants to make money to get out of the quagmire. I gave him a chance. Of course, the premise is that I make more money." Louise hooked her chin frivolously. "I thought you slept with him. He is good looking, has a likable personality, is sensible and interesting, and has many talents. He is better than many of his peers from wealthy families. When women talk about private matters with each other, they are more exaggerated than men." Kelly picked up the pink kettle, took a sip of water, and said, "As far as I know, he made this thing based on himself." Louise couldn't help laughing. "What a funny person." She grabbed the kettle with both hands. "Have you used it? Is it good? Not just for show. Is it really that exaggerated?" Kelly ignored the slut's dirty talk and sighed. "It's a pity that he comes from a poor family. There are not many poor people as talented as him." Louise thought of yesterday. "Well, his acting skills are okay. Just look at the part yesterday. It's above average." Kelly said, "Actually, he's not best at acting." "I know." Louise picked up the kettle and poked Kelly in the face. "This." Kelly snatched it back. "I'm not teasing you. He's best at mixing cocktails. Remember the paper airplane I mentioned?" Originally Louise just thought it was interesting, but when she heard about the cocktail she had never tasted before, she sat up straight and said, "Call him. Call quickly." She slapped her head again. "Damn, I have important work to do in the afternoon. I can't get drunk. It's better not to drink." Kelly said, "Drunkard. Once the alcohol bug is aroused, it is difficult to suppress it." Louise said, call him and ask if he is free in the evening. I will pay him by the hour. In the afternoon, Martin received a call from Kelly and went to the headquarters of the Freedom Association. The board of directors of the Freedom Association held a small meeting. In order to commend Martin and others for their outstanding performance in this event, they were awarded a special certificate of honor and a $5,000 award. For Martin now, cash incentives are the most refreshing. Martin followed Kelly Gray into her office and asked, "You're in such a good mood. Is there something good going on?" Kelly Gray's eyebrows almost went up to the sky. "Vice President, it's basically confirmed. Congratulations," Martin said as if he was an old friend. "Kelly, you have to treat us." Kelly Gray said, "How about tonight?" Louise is an alcoholic. After hearing me talk about paper airplanes, she can't wait. "Do you have time?" The suite she stayed in has a wine cabinet. She can always get wine if she needs it. She reminded him specifically, "If you want to be a star, Louise can help you." Martin's smile was still as sunny as usual. "Kelly, I really don't know how to thank you." Kelly joked, "When you become a big star, help me act in a play." The two chatted for a while, especially about Louise's taste in wine. When leaving the Freedom Club and returning to the club to get the wine that had been prepared long ago, Martin asked for leave from the boss Vincent. He was also considering that, now that he had financial security in his life, he could give up his part-time job at the Beast Bar. Because he made money, the group of sons believed in him. It was okay for a short time, but what about the long term? What would Vincent think? Chapter 45 The Real Audition. In the living room of the hotel suite, Louise put her hands in the pockets of her cropped trousers, leaned against the bar, and watched Martin shaking the cocktail shaker diagonally across from her quickly. Before Martin came over, he deliberately changed into a fitted V-neck t-shirt, and his muscular body outlined perfect lines. Kelly sat on a high stool with her hands on her chest, and felt that Martin's cocktail mixing movements and postures were more artistic than when he was in the Beast House. Martin took out a chilled wine glass and poured the wine into it, and then clamped a folded and exquisite paper airplane on the rim of the glass as a decoration. "Paper airplane, please taste it." Louise stared at the orange red and transparent wine, picked it up, and tasted it carefully. Elegant and delicate, soft and refreshing. This was a taste of wine she had never tasted before, a brand new cocktail. This glass of wine alone was worth it tonight. Martin did not ignore Kelly and mixed a glass of caipirinha with sugarcane wine as the base wine and handed it over. "Kelly, this is yours. Sweet taste suits me better." Kelly took a sip. After taking the second sip, Louise savored it carefully. Suddenly, she put down the cold wine glass, used a tissue to clean the mist on her hands, and stretched out her right hand to the bar. "Let me formally introduce myself, Louise Mayer, from Los Angeles." This was completely different from Kelly's introduction of the two. Martin also wiped his hands clean and gently shook her hand. "Martin Davis, a bartender and actor. This is a drink that can be recorded in the history of cocktails." Louise drank the remaining orange bright liquor in one gulp. "Martin, you are a genius," Martin deliberately said. "I have tried countless recipes and I'm lucky." Louise thought, "So, there are other recipes. Is there any stronger one?" "Strong liquor?" Martin confirmed. Louise tilted her head to look at Martin. "Strong liquor is more addictive. It may not suit your taste." Martin changed to a new cocktail shaker, poured in the sorghum red he brought, added daunting wine and crushed ice, shook it evenly, poured it into the iced glass, and then put in fresh orange slices. He handed it to Louise. "Welcome to Atlanta." "It's called Welcome." Louise picked up the glass. The wine was mellow, smooth in the mouth, and slightly sweet. She had never tasted it before either. She was an old alcoholic and could taste the high alcohol content. After taking a gulp, her blue eyes instantly became clear, as if water was seeping out. "The taste is a bit strange, but it is still a good glass of wine." Martin nodded slightly. "Thank you. It has been recognized by the first customer." Louise was very interested in wine. "I'm honored to be its first customer." Her alcohol addiction broke out. "Anything else?" Martin certainly had other things, but she didn't say so. "I'm mixing a new wine recently, but it hasn't been successful yet." After the strong liquor was swallowed, Louise's face remained unchanged. "We can discuss wine when we have time." Martin's brain reacted very quickly. Every time a new cocktail comes out, countless recipes must be tried. It is difficult for one person to do it. Louise, if you have time, let's try it together. Louise leaned half of her body on the bar, her ups and downs of her body twisted into exaggerated curves, and she looked at Martin with interest. You have a lot of ideas. Are you willing to give it up? Martin understood. It hasn't been successful yet. He couldn't ignore Kelly and asked, I heard from Andrew that The Man from the City will be broadcast tonight. Kelly put down her glass. The second cable channel, still at that time. A TV series? A movie? A work of your company? Louise, a drunkard, picked up Kelly's glass, drank it in one gulp, and frowned. This is a drink, not like wine. Martin brought a bottle of Macallan whiskey with a higher degree and poured it into 3 new glasses. Kelly was talking about the movie. Martin is one of the supporting actors in the late night movie I invested in. She suddenly remembered the sample film she had seen. He performed very well. Really? Louise was surprised and asked Martin, where did you learn all this? Bartending, acting, and the ability to make people feel comfortable, even though they know you are trying to please them, are not something a poor boy from the slums can learn. Martin was not surprised. With his thick skin, he would not be embarrassed and said frankly, my father, Jack Davis, is the most versatile person in Atlanta. Kelly said, I haven't heard of it. Louise stopped probing and picked up the glass. I'm in charge of my own life. Martin and Kelly both picked up their glasses, and the 3 of them clinked their glasses gently and drank the glass of whiskey. Louise took the bottle and poured the wine. Cheers to this wonderful night. Before the late night show started, the 3 of them finished a bottle of whiskey. Martin went to get more wine. Kelly staggered over. No more. How can a wonderful night be without good wine? Louise grabbed Kelly, and the 2 female drunks fell on the sofa. The latter rested her head on the chest of the former, as soft as if she was sinking into cotton wool, and murmured comfortably, where is the remote control? It's about to start. Martin brought the wine over and poured it again. The 2 female drunks in their early 30s, plus a 22-year-old male drunk, continued to drink. Martin lay crooked on the single sofa and raised his glass to Louise. Whatever the director arranges, I will do it. Louise reached back and took out a pink kettle from the inside of the sofa. The mouth of the kettle was stuffed next to Kelly's mouth. Kelly opened her mouth and bit the straw, sucking water with a shrug. She asked, I heard you are the prototype? Martin was prepared. It's a little exaggerated. Louise waved. Come here. It's still early tonight. Sit next to me. Let's drink slowly. Martin went over with the bottle of wine, and just as he sat down, 2 different hands reached out to him one after another. There was nothing special or messy. It was just an audition. The next morning, when Martin woke up, Kelly Gray was getting ready to go out. She was not surprised. I ordered breakfast for you. Martin waved to her, got up from the carpet, and went to open the window. It smells like alcohol. Louise took out her personal business card and put it on the coffee table. When are you going to adjust your new cocktail? Call me. She glanced at Martin. If you want to be a star, this is a must. Martin had been drifting for so many years in his previous life, and he had seen a lot of messes, and Hollywood would only be more messy. I don't think it's right. I should be the one auditioning you. He sat on the sofa, and his words sounded particularly nice. 2 young, sexy, beautiful, and elegant beauties. In order to get support for the film project, they are willing to feed themselves to the pervert. Louise laughed happily, got up and went to the study, quickly took out a text, and put it together with the business card. I have the power to make the decision on this small role. Take it back and study it carefully. Although you passed the audition last night, Hollywood is not the same as before, and the audition room routine procedures still have to be followed. She put away her smile and solemnly warned, don't blame me for being ruthless if your performance in the audition room is too poor. I know the importance of it. Martin put it all away and said in a different way, does the crew need extras? The community theater troupe I'm in charge is low fees, is very professional, and can endure hardships. Louise nodded. When you audition, bring the person in charge with you. It is confirmed to be on the shelves on April 1st, and there will be a first order lottery and leader gift activities. Long Xiang has posted specific instructions in the comments section. Those who are interested can go and have a look. Chapter 46 Hard Power. The Ford drove into the commercial district of Merita. Martin called Bruce and asked, "Old Bruce?" Bruce replied angrily, "What do you want to see me for?" Martin said, "Come out for dinner at Rosario restaurant. I'll treat you." Bruce said bluntly, "I'm going to eat you out of money." Martin went into the restaurant and found a quiet booth. After waiting for more than 10 minutes, Bruce hurried in and sat opposite him. The two ordered some Mexican-style dishes and talked while eating. Martin took out a check and pushed it over. "Here's to you." Martin simply said, "I made some money in the Freedom Society and you did some shit for me. Take it." Bruce was no longer polite and took the check. "2 months ago, I asked you for a debt and now I'm collecting your payment. Is there something wrong with that? This is the difference between smart people and civilized people. You are just a civilized person, and I'm both smart and civilized." Martin ate the black pepper beef slowly and said, "I don't plan to be a bartender anymore." Bruce knew that Martin was only in the beast house to make money. It's better not to do it. There's no good in getting in touch with it. If you stay for a long time, maybe one day you will really accompany me to be a scavenger. He turned and asked, "What are you going to do? Are you going to be an actor?" Martin said roughly, "A crew came from Hollywood, and I got one of the producers. I should be able to get a role, so I have to make some preparations." Bruce was surprised. "Damn it, you sold it to the producer? Wake up, old Bruce, that's what you like to do." Martin held his head high and said righteously, "I conquered the producer in the audition with my real ability. Hard power, do you understand?" Bruce felt that there was something wrong with this, but he couldn't put it into words. "Are you so great? Tell me about you, a civilized scavenger." Martin changed the subject and gave an appropriate reminder. "Don't die, you stinky piece of shit. I won't attend your funeral." Bruce was optimistic. "You said that shit and shit can last forever. When you become a big star, I will be your bodyguard." Martin responded, "It's settled." After dinner, Bruce was going to pick up Monica, and Martin went to the community theater not far away to tell the leader the good news. In the office, Jerome suppressed his excitement and pretended to be calm and confident. "I haven't even started to work yet, and you've already done it. Martin, you did a great job. The troupe has Robert Patrick as a line. With Martin's current level, he can't miss any opportunity. Captain, you don't need to do this kind of thing." Jerome thought to himself that all the people in the troupe combined could not make him feel as comfortable as Martin. "So, Martin, I formally nominate you as the deputy director of the troupe." The captain did not mention the remuneration, and Martin did not ask, but just said, "I'll call you when the crew auditions." Jerome took out a few magazines, Variety and Entertainment Weekly, which have the latest developments in the film and television industry. "Take them." Back in the car, Martin took out his phone and prepared to call Vincent Lee, but after thinking carefully, he decided to say it in person. He and Vincent had no conflicts at this stage. Martin called to ask, drove to the club, went up to the second floor, and entered Vincent's office. "Boss, I got an important role in the Hollywood crew." He explained his purpose directly. "I need to make a lot of preparations, and I don't have time to come again in the evening." Vincent raised his cowboy hat, stared at Martin for a moment, and said, "I'm also thinking about raising your salary after these busy days, and officially becoming the deputy manager of the club." Seeing that he misunderstood, Martin said again, "Boss, this has nothing to do with the position and salary. I have always wanted to be an actor. This opportunity is very rare." Vincent was silent for a while, thinking about the way Martin brought in the hot customer flow, nothing more than clinging to the fire of the Freedom Club, and continuing to do it. There was not much interest involved on both sides, and Vincent made a decision. "Martin, the club welcomes you back at any time." Martin left the office and went to the accountant Dana to settle this week's salary. When he came to the lobby, the handsome men's group was practicing dancing on the stage. "After spending many days together, I have to say goodbye now." Martin pushed the two guys away, not joking with them, and said, "I just resigned." "Why?" Hart's thoughts turned quickly, and he glared at Carrington. "It's all your fault. Martin's father has always wanted a daughter. You don't go for surgery and disappoint Martin's father." Kierington reacted a little slower. Aren't you going to have surgery? Another handsome man who had been an extra asked, are you going to be an actor? Martin nodded slightly. Martin pointed at these guys. I shouldn't talk nonsense with you. Everyone talked for a while. Martin looked at the time, left the club, and returned to Clayton. The number of black people around the community has increased significantly. The spots where white people used to sell grass are all occupied by old black people. Martin parked the car in the backyard, picked up the box on the back seat, and went to Carter's house. As soon as I entered the door, I heard Alina's familiar greeting, idiot, didn't you go to the club? Not for the time being. Martin threw the cup to Alina. I'll give you one. Martin praised, you are so right. He pulled out a chair and sat down, took out 2 checks. This is a gift for you. Alina looked down and said, what do you mean? You idiot are going to support me? Martin was helpless. Use your small brain capacity to think about it. Why should I spend money when I can do it for free? Alina raised her middle finger. Martin said, the payment for the kettle business. One is your labor fee, and the other is for the idiot Lily. Alina put it away without hesitation. Don't tell Lily, she, the idiot, doesn't need money. After dinner, Martin went back to the next door and looked through the role script given by Louise and studied it carefully. No preparation should be missed. Chapter 47 Rival. On Monday morning, Grey Company was extremely busy. They rented a whole floor of the crew and had to interview many actors for small roles today. People from the crew came to Atlanta one after another, but before producer Steve Garlin came, Louise Mayer had the final say here. Director Michel Gondry is a Frenchman with average qualifications and achievements, and is more like the general director of the filming on the set. After the morning meeting, Louise reminded the casting director, pay special attention to the actor I mentioned. I understand. Richard is not a newcomer and understands what is going on. The crew has recruited staff in Atlanta and will also recruit a group of actors for small roles, which can save a lot of labor costs. Richard quickly went to the audition room. Just after turning the corner of the corridor, Lynn, who was temporarily hired by Grey Company, came to him. Director Richard. The other party is also a casting director in Grey Company, and Richard gave him some face. What's the matter? Lynn mentioned an actor he discovered and worked with many times. What we talked about a few days ago. Adam Smith. Please pay more attention to it. Richard nodded, and then held a meeting with his assistants. When he looked through the resumes brought by his assistant, he found out that Adam Smith and Martin Davis were auditioning for the same role. Richard didn't even think about it and put Adam Smith's resume at the end. At the same time, Martin came to Grey Company and met Jerome at the door. He called Louise's assistant, and soon someone came and took Jerome to discuss the large-scale use of temporary actors. Robert came in from the door with his big head and saw Martin at a glance and hurried over. Are you here to audition too? Martin asked. Which role are you auditioning for? The two walked in, and Robert said as he walked, a marginal role with only 2 lines. I dream of having a line. Martin said, don't worry, we are not the same role. Robert asked, the main role? Martin said, unless you help. Robert touched his big head. Man, it was really an accident. Martin said casually, I believe you. When they came to the audition room, there were too many people, and a row of benches was not enough, and many people were standing. The door of an office next to him opened, and Andrew came out with documents. He happened to see Martin, and when he saw him standing, he hurriedly called out, Jenny, come on, move a chair out. No, to. The freckled female assistant dragged 2 chairs over. Andrew took one, and dragged it to Martin. Sit down. Martin quickly took the chair, and was as polite as before. Thank you. We are friends. Andrew lowered his voice. I haven't thanked you for the news you leaked to me last time. I became the first man in the company to use a kettle. The boss praised me in public and recommended me to come to this crew to learn. Martin said nice things. You're going to be promoted. Congratulations. Andrew smiled. Actually, it's the same as before. We need a casting assistant who is familiar with Atlanta to help select extras. I will mainly liaise with Jerome. Martin said, with the resume of a $20 million crew, you will be a genuine casting director when you go back. I hope so. Andrew prepared to leave. Martin and Robert had just sat down when someone next to them complained, why don't we have seats? Andrew's smiling face suddenly turned extremely serious. If you don't want to stand, you can walk. The other audition actors who wanted to speak shut up. Andrew raised the file and said, I have something else to do. Martin said, go ahead. Not far away, on a bench against the wall, Adam Smith had been observing this sight. His companion Ward asked, the one from Marzen. Adam Smith asked, is he so famous? Marzen. Ward's expression was a little exaggerated. I heard that in high-end clubs, many women are asking who he is, and want to spend a lot of money to have an encounter with him on horseback. Kyle, that idiot, originally this scene was his. Adam Smith muttered, a little worried. He came here at this time, and he auditioned for the same role as me? You are the leading actor in many plays of Grey Company, and you are recommended by director Lynn. Ward's voice was also very low. What can he compare with you? Adam Smith said, he has a special relationship with Kelly Gray. You saw Andrew, and tried to please him. Ward reminded, didn't Lynn say that your information should be put first? For a large-scale audition of such a small role, it is very important to be in the front. The audition room was opened at this time, and the corridor immediately became quiet. Adam Smith tidied his clothes and prepared in advance. A middle-aged female assistant came out and called someone, Martin Davis. Ward was surprised. Everyone looked at Martin. Robert raised his fist. Come on, man. Martin bumped fists with him and strode into the audition room. Of course, there was no red sofa for this kind of audition. With the development of Hollywood, the so-called red sofa has long been removed from the audition room. If you really want to discuss the play and the role in private, a hotel room or something like that is more appropriate. Even if it was just a formal audition, Martin still gave 100% of his performance. It was a very simple performance, plus a few lines. It was not difficult for him. Adam Smith watched Martin go in and out, talking to the big head with a smile, and he was not in a good mood. He was not the second one to enter the audition room, and the third one was still not the third one, and the fourth and fifth ones were not yet. This was a Hollywood crew. The opportunity to really get in touch with Hollywood was right in front of him, but it was so far away that he could not reach it. When it was Adam Smith's turn, the psychological gap caused him to perform less than ideally. Just looking at the expressions of the casting director and the assistant, he knew that there was no chance. Ward saw Adam Smith coming out and asked, how is it? Adam Smith shook his head. Let's go. After leaving Grey Company, Adam Smith called Lynn. Soon, Lynn called back. It was confirmed right after the audition. Martin Davis. He added, come over this afternoon. There is another small role with fewer scenes. I will help you get it. Adam Smith put away his phone and said, Ward, you know a lot of people in Atlanta. Help me get to know Martin Davis. Ward was puzzled. It's just a small role. More than this role. Adam Smith was really worried about other aspects. This crew works closely with Gray's Company. Do you understand? I may not be as good as Martin Davis here at Gray's Company. Gray's late night dramas are his base. He can't go to Hollywood, but he still lives well in Atlanta. If the base is gone, his current life will be in vain. Installment cars, houses bought with loans, daily life with credit cards, etc. will all be seriously affected. Adam Smith said. Lynn revealed that director Benjamin is writing a new play for Gray's Company. I thought I would be the best actor, but now it seems a bit bad. Ward understood. Are we going to suppress the threat just when it emerges? Adam Smith nodded. I should at least understand who my potential opponent is. If I don't even know who my opponent is, I will be replaced by someone else without knowing what's going on. Chapter 48 Healing the Soul. With his big head swinging, Robert turned into the lobby on the first floor. Martin saw him, waved and asked, how is it? Robert's face was full of depression. Can't they see that I have the same big celebrity head as Stallone, Willis, and Schwarzenegger? Martin took a step back, nodded while looking at him. In terms of appearance, you are very distinctive, and it is easy to leave a deep impression on the audience. Have you seen the trailer of Pirates of the Caribbean? If you wear a pirate costume, the image of you is more vivid than those pirates. Robert really saw it, with his hands in his trouser pockets. Man, I have a good psychological quality. I don't mind if you say I'm ugly. He suddenly remembered what Martin often said and decided to scare him. But when you drink coke in the future, Martin was smart. I swear, I will never drink Coke in a glass bottle again. Robert's depression dissipated a lot, and he said, "Thank you, man, I feel much better." Martin said, "You're welcome. After all, you helped me." Robert was depressed again. "Are you fucking done? I'd better go be a background artist." He asked, "What's the result of your audition?" Martin nodded. "I received a notice." Robert said, "Congratulations." He sighed. "It's just one line. It's too difficult." Martin patted his arm. "I can't help you with this crew, but after the filming is finished, we can stay on the crew to do odd jobs." Staying on the crew means that he can get in touch with the main cast and crew of the crew. In fact, his role seems to have a lot of scenes in the script, but who knows how much will be left after the final editing. It's not surprising that there are only fleeting shots left. "Thank you," Robert said. "It's a rare experience." Jerome hurried over from the other side of the hall, and seeing the two actors from the troupe, he quickened his pace. "Good news." Robert didn't pass the audition, but he still had to rely on the troupe, so he asked, "Captain, have you agreed to cooperate?" "Yes," Jerome emphasized. "Deputy Captain Martin, you have made an outstanding contribution to the development of the troupe." He was so excited that he was about to explode, but he remained calm on the surface, saying lightly, "The crew needs a small number of extras. After my efforts, the crew decided that all extras will be handled by the Merita troupe." Martin understood that Andrew had contributed to it. Jerome planned to use this opportunity to recruit new people when he returned. Robert looked at Martin in surprise. "You became the deputy captain?" Jerome patted Robert on the shoulder. "You work hard, and when you come back." In his excitement, he almost said that when he came back, he would buy another new car. Martin turned the topic to himself. "Captain, my role has been confirmed. The crew asked me to find someone to negotiate the salary. I have no experience in this area. The person I trust most is you, Captain." It was confirmed so quickly? Jerome was still a little surprised, but thinking that Martin never forgot the troupe, he took on all the responsibilities. "Don't worry, leave it to me. I will help you negotiate, but you should be mentally prepared that the salary will not be high. The crew came to Atlanta to shoot in order to save costs." Martin said, "The role is more important than the salary." Jerome nodded in approval. The more he looked at Martin, the more he liked him. This idiot might leave Atlanta one day. If he goes to Los Angeles, he can say hello to Robert Patrick. Then the idiot will have some connections. The three of them left Gray's company together. At noon, Jerome generously paid for the meal. After lunch, he went to Gray's company again to negotiate Martin's salary with the crew. Although he is not a professional agent, Jerome has been running the troupe for many years and is familiar with many things in Hollywood. Martin only earned $600 a day for a small role and a small actor, and he is not a member of the union. As for other benefits, the crew has a unified standard for food and accommodation, transportation subsidies and on-set insurance. The next day, Martin signed a formal contract with the crew. Towards the evening, he received a call from Louise. "Macho man, come out for a drink." Martin asked directly, "Where to go?" Louise was obsessed with the new cocktail. "Come to my hotel suite. The bartending tools are all there." Martin understood what she meant and went to the liquor store to buy some base liquor. When they arrived at the hotel suite, Louise was the only one there. She sat at the bar with a tequila in front of her and had already started drinking. Martin walked into the bar with a wine box, took Louise's tequila and glass aside, and reminded, "You can't make a drink if you drink too much." Louise was surprised. "Did you really not make the new wine well?" Martin wanted to give this female alcoholic a sense of participation. A new cocktail was born from the hands of the two, leaving a deeper impression than a kettle. He said, "We have a prototype, but the specific formula still needs to be adjusted." Louise also went behind the bar, took out alcohol wipes to clean her hands, took out the cocktail shaker and measuring machine, and said, "What are we waiting for? Let's get started." Martin opened the wine box, took out the wine, and put it away one by one. "Are you more interested in wine than movies?" "Movies are work, wine is a hobby, they are different." Louise's eyes drifted down again. "Wine is like spiritual food for me. I feel comfortable all over after drinking it." Martin put on the serious face of a bartender. When it comes to cocktail making, be serious. Louise took out the black-rimmed glasses and put them on. Let's get started. My idea for the new wine is to have the flavor of whiskey, with a heavy taste and strong stimulation to the taste buds. Martin stretched out a finger and tapped Louise's tall nose. It can heal the soul of an alcoholic like you. He wanted to mobilize Louise's sense of participation. Which whiskey do you think is suitable? Louise is a typical alcoholic. After just a moment's thought, she said, Ice Lapeated whiskey. She considered a lot. For cocktails to be widely popular, price is also the key. Lagavulin is too expensive and not suitable. I can only choose between Keolila and Ardbeg, and I suggest Ardbeg. Martin took out a bottle of Ardbeg and asked, why? Are you testing me? Louise showed off. Of all the whiskies produced on Islay, Ardbeg has a strong smoky flavor and a light malt sweetness, which balances the taste very well. Martin poured half a cup of Ardbeg and added some lemon juice. The taste is not rich enough. Louise took it and drank a little. Too sour. Martin said, add a small amount of ginger syrup. This is a common ingredient in cocktails. Louise took a small amount, added it and stirred. The whiskey flavor is light. Martin snapped his fingers, blended whiskey. The two tried common brands one by one, and changed the amount they added. After nearly 2 hours of tossing, they finally found a suitable recipe. Martin mixed the drink, and Louise was very serious. She went to the bathroom, to rinse her mouth, to remove the excess taste of alcohol from her mouth. When she returned to the bar, the classical glass was filled with light golden liquor, decorated with lemon and ginger slices. Is this our wine? Louise picked it up with great anticipation, and took a sip slowly. The smoke, swelling and spiciness instantly filled her mouth, like a cannonball exploding. The next taste was mellow, round, sour and sweet. The taste was rich and layered, and the ups and downs of life seemed to be all integrated into it. Louise took another sip, and handed the rest to Martin. Martin drank it, and savored it carefully. How does it feel? Louise took off her black-rimmed glasses, as if she had eaten nectar, with a look of satisfaction. It's bitter at first, but sweet later. It gets more and more exciting as time goes on. I slowly get used to the sense of expansion and impact it brings, and the rest is full of rich and beautiful flavors. Martin admitted defeat. Female alcoholic, are you talking about wine? What else can it be if not wine? Louise raised her eyebrows. Don't use your dirty thoughts to pollute the good wine we just invented. Martin was too lazy to argue. I'll give you a chance. Name it. Louise walked around the bar, went back to the front, smiled and said, I know you are playing with people's hearts, but I can't refuse the temptation to leave my name in the history of cocktails. Martin shrugged. It just healed the soul of a female alcoholic. Louise thought for a moment. Penicillin. It's called penicillin. She took out a pen and paper and quickly wrote down the formula. Penicillin in the medical world has saved countless lives, and it can heal the souls of countless alcoholics. I want to bring it back to Los Angeles and let it really spread. Martin said, you are one of the creators and have such power. I'm not a person like Harvey Weinstein who doesn't care about details. Louise suddenly changed the subject. After you finish your work on the crew, I will give you a comprehensive evaluation and suggestions, which will help you avoid many detours. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 49, War on the Set. The crew soon moved from Gray's company to the General Motors Production Center. Since GM closed its Atlanta production center in 2000, this large industrial park has been idle. After cooperating with the crew, Kelly Gray rented a large factory and converted it into a studio. With French director Michel Gondry and more than 20 main cast members coming to Atlanta, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind began filming. Martin played a small role with a relatively fragmented part. His main task every day was to put on makeup and wait. This job is not as simple as it seems. Martin would occasionally play against Robert to keep in shape. He is like the man in the film Saint Valley, with no sense of existence, but when the director uses him, he must be full of fighting spirit, and not be as soft as a slug. It doesn't matter if Jim Carrey and Kate Winslet are not in good shape, and those who act with them must make fewer mistakes. In the actor's lounge, Martin raised his hand and bumped fists with Robert. Brother, don't make fucking mistakes. It was Robert's turn to appear in the next scene. He said, I'm an old background artist. 5 or 6 actors entered the bookstore to act as background boards. Robert's position was good. Maybe the camera could capture the front. Before the shooting, Martin found that Robert quietly moved half a step towards Kate Winslet. From the position of the camera could definitely capture him. He is indeed an old background artist. It did not exceed the requirements, and he could show his face. Being a background board for Jim Carrey and Kate Winslet is enough to brag about for several years among the background artists in Atlanta. Maybe the air in the studio was stuffy, or maybe it was the days of a woman's month. Kate Winslet was in a very bad state today. It took more than 10 takes to pass a very simple scene. French director Michel could only shoot one by one, and he couldn't vent his anger. After Robert came back, Martin was ready to enter the scene. He and Kate Winslet had 2 lines of dialogue, and then kissed. He sprayed a breath freshener, and entered the set, to have a brief exchange with Kate Winslet. Kate Winslet said directly, I take the initiative, follow my rhythm. Martin said, understood. The assistant director came over to remind her to move. The shooting began. The hero and heroine were talking. Martin came from behind the bookshelf, talked to the heroine, and then lowered his head to kiss her. The heroine quickly leaned over and kissed Martin on the mouth. Michelle called out to shallow. Deep kiss. A deep kiss to express love. Starting over, the heroine kissed Martin again. Michelle was still not satisfied. Kate, are you going to eat him? Once again, he called out cut. The French are romantic in their bones, which makes the director demand perfection from kissing. After shooting more than a dozen times in a row, Michelle was not satisfied. The later it was, the worse Kate Winslet was. Because the heroine tried all kinds of kisses, Martin's lips were numb. At first, he felt a little bit of joy in his heart. I kissed Ruth. Soon he became indifferent, and it became a kissing scene between me and Kate Winslet. At this point, Martin had only one thought. The one in front of me was Fat Winslet. After several calls for a stop, Michelle couldn't help but say, don't stick out your tongue. Who knows what you want? Kate Winslet exploded. This is a woman who dares to go against Cameron on the set. She directly used her female advantage and fired a cannon. Put away the boring French men's tricks. I've had enough of you in Los Angeles. French men who only take their anger out on women. As soon as the British insult to France came out, Michelle's anger rose. You arrogant and rude half-cooked beef. There is no undersea tunnel here, but there is an international airport to hell, which is as convenient as Charles de Gaulle Airport. Everyone present, including Jim Carrey, quickly hid aside, not wanting to participate in this damn fancy mutual insult. Producer Steve Garlin, screenwriter and producer Charlie Kaufman, and executive producer Louise Mayer all ran to the set to persuade them to stop fighting. The crew paused their work, and Martin returned to the rest area. After seeking the advice of the assistant makeup artist, he took out a wet towel and wiped it gently. Robert added insult to injury. I was a little envious of you, but now, it's not easy for you to come back alive. The 3 producers persuaded each other, and it took a while to calm down the war. Martin put on his makeup and returned to the set. Kate Winslet saw Martin's lips and said politely, sorry. Martin replied softly, it's okay. Director Michelle glanced at Martin and asked the makeup artist his mouth. The makeup artist said, you have to wait for a while. Michelle couldn't wait for a little actor. After thinking for a while, he said to the assistant, adjust his position. In the next shooting, Martin walked sideways, kissed Kate Winslet with his back to the camera, and there was no frontal shot. Martin accepted the reality very helplessly. The director quarreled with the heroine, but he was the unlucky one in the end. Back to the resting place, Robert was very happy. Although you have lines, you didn't show your face. Martin's shooting for the day was over, and he could take off his makeup and leave. The two went to the trailer together. After removing his makeup, Martin asked Robert, your filming is over. What are you going to do next? Robert said, I chose a job in the logistics team, mainly carrying food and drinks. I'm familiar with this job. Martin couldn't help but remind him, man, I can't be the male lead or the male supporting role in this crew. You don't have to work so hard. Robert didn't want to pay attention to this bastard, pointed to the front and said, look, isn't that our male lead? Martin looked over there at the open-air MACUP area set up by the awning. Among the passers-by changing clothes, there was a handsome blonde guy. After thinking for a while, he asked, Adam Smith. Robert nodded. Yes, you were the male lead in Mars Ends play. I didn't expect that you are just a background board like me now. A mixed-race black woman came out of the dining car next to him and greeted Robert. Have you finished your work today? Robert said, the filming is over, and I will start doing odd jobs tomorrow. The black woman turned her eyes to Martin. Robert introduced casually, this is Martin, the deputy director of the troupe. Martin, this is Rosa, a former actor of the troupe, who is now back. Rosa stretched out her hand to Martin, her chocolate-colored skin as smooth as satin. I remember you. Martin didn't remember her, but shook hands politely. I remember you too. The black BMW 7 drove to the side of the road, and Kelly Gray, who was wearing a business suit, got out of the car and waved to Martin. There is a friend, Martin said and walked over. Kelly Gray saw his mouth at a glance. How did you get hurt here? Martin shrugged. It was a kissing scene. I was too charming, and the heroine kissed me, and my mouth was swollen. Kelly smiled. I have good news to tell you. Your social investigator has been promoted to a regular employee with a weekly salary of $500. Martin said, how can I thank you? No need. Kelly did not shy away, because Martin was not stupid, and he would understand after asking casually, I get more. Martin also smiled. When can you become Congressman Kelly? Kelly Gray said, there is still a long way to go. Not far away on the other side. Rosa looked at Martin and asked curiously, is he familiar with the boss of Gray Films? Robert said, it seems like they are friends. I don't know the details. Rosa looked at the two people talking and laughing, and said, more than just familiarity. Robert didn't want to talk more, and said vaguely, who knows? Martin turned around, waved to Robert, and followed Kelly Gray back to the studio. Rosa retracted her gaze and invited Robert. I'll treat you to dinner. Robert pointed to the dining cart. You didn't eat? No. Rosa took Robert's arm and walked away. Passing by the open-air dressing area, Adam Smith was taking off his costume. Seeing Rosa coming, he greeted, hi, Rosa, where are you going? Rosa stopped. To dinner. Adam Smith looked at Rosa's curvy figure, then glanced at the big-headed ugly man following behind, and showed a charming smile. It's just right. I want to have dinner too. I'll treat you. Rosa's eyes fell on his passerby costume, and she politely refused. Sorry, I have an appointment. Adam Smith lowered his head to look at the costume, but it was inappropriate to throw it away. He was used to being the leading man, and now he plays such a statusless passerby role. The psychological gap is huge. Wood came over and whispered, Boyette's Mandigo called and asked us to pick up the goods tonight. The ladies in the high-end clubs like the new goods very much. I see. The income of the male lead of Gray's late-night drama is not particularly high. Adam Smith's decent life also comes from part-time work in high-end clubs and helping others to ship goods. Wood tentatively said, do you want to cut off that side? Adam Smith didn't care. Big stars like Marlon Brando could put down their dignity and do it back then. What am I afraid of? He patted Wood on the shoulder and said, it's easy to get on this boat, but it's hard to get off. Used to making money lying down. Who the hell is willing to stand up? Chapter 50. Humans and Ghosts. Very good. Your performance was great. French director Michel rarely left the director's chair and entered the set, saying to Jim Carrey, your performance is Oscar level. You deserve an Oscar. Jim Carrey just smiled and said nothing else. Michel turned to Martin, who was acting with him. Boy, believe in my judgment. Your acting is great. This is the director. Martin has no right to remain silent and said with a stiff upper lip, thank you, director. I will try my best. Outside the temporary flea market, Kate Winslet's mouth was almost curled to her ears. Since the quarrel that day, she and the director no longer said a word except for work. Michel also praised other actors, as if he wanted to express some emotions in this way. The crew is a fucking workplace, and it is normal to fight each other. When someone is comfortable, someone will be uncomfortable. Martin returned to the rest area and just sat down, a chocolate-colored hand stretched out, with slender fingers holding a straw cup. "Martin, do you want some water?" Martin looked up and saw Rosa. Maybe because of her mixed blood, she didn't look like a black person, so she looked more beautiful. "I'm not thirsty, no thanks," he declined. Rosa was very enthusiastic. "Call me if you need anything, I'll be right next to you," Martin said politely. "Thank you." This woman has been around him from time to time, since the day before yesterday. Robert came in from outside with a box of Coke, panting, and placed the cans of Coke on the table in the lounge. Martin was about to get a bottle, but he didn't get up yet, so he sat back quickly. Although it was not a glass bottle, Robert's Coke. Robert came over, sat next to Martin, and wiped his sweat, and asked, "Is Rosa still pestering you?" Martin said, "I have no right to drive her away. She is interested in you. Robert's work is easy, and he is just idle. You can easily ask her out." Martin shook his head. "Man, free is the most expensive. I want to sleep with her. What do you think she will want?" "Robert is not stupid. If she pesters you again, I will help you. I do need your help with something." Martin called Louise last night. Louise specifically mentioned to him that Michel Gondry is a member of the French director gang in Hollywood. There are various forces in Hollywood privately, and the most obvious division is nationality. In the afternoon, the crew's work came to a temporary end, and many people left the studio one after another. French director Michel has a quirk. He goes to the bathroom to squat and then leaves. After a standard 15 minutes, Michel came out of the special cubicle, and the sound of flushing sounded behind him. He walked out, and heard someone talking in the bathroom, with an Atlanta accent. "You invite me to a British restaurant? Are there restaurants that sell British food in Atlanta? Even if there are, who would go to eat?" "Yes, they have also issued a British food guide." "I know," Martin said sarcastically, "the legendary garbage classification guide." Michel came out, and couldn't help laughing when he heard this. Seeing that the person who spoke was Martin, he said, "The British don't know food." Martin seemed to refute. "London has the top 10 restaurants in the world." Michel frowned slightly. Martin changed his voice. "All the food sold in it is French." Michel praised. "Martin, there are not many Americans like you who have a clear understanding of food. Because I have been poisoned by British food." Martin's face fell, as if he was recalling a very terrifying thing. Robert, who was acting with him, was an old background artist. Standing behind Martin at this moment, there was no disobedience at all. His naturally honest and loyal appearance could also add points to Martin's words. Michelle had been working continuously, and was under a lot of pressure. She asked, "Is there a good French restaurant in Atlanta?" Since Martin came here, of course he did his homework. "Yes, in the city center. They definitely don't sell damn British food." Michelle was rarely relieved and said, "Can you, a local, lead the way?" Martin said, "My honor." During dinner, the two talked about the romantic city of Paris, the foggy London, the elegant French, the damn British football hooligans. Language is an art. Martin successfully got Michel Gondry's personal business card and exchanged contact information. Earlier, in the president's office of Gray Company, director Benjamin Galvin hurried over and stopped Kelly Gray, who was about to get off work. A script was placed on Kelly Gray's desk. "This is something I and a few screenwriters have just completed. Every director has dreams. Benjamin doesn't want to shoot late night dramas all his life. The source of the idea is what you said about Martin lying dead and watching the hero and heroine fall in love." Kelly was a little stunned. "That was a joke Martin made to me." Benjamin said, "Martin's performance in the last Mars End drama was very outstanding. I made a point of getting to know him. He works in a male dancer club. I added this element to the creative idea." Kelly saw that the new script directly had the name, Zombie Male Dancer. She read a dozen pages and had a general idea in her mind. She closed the script and said, "Ben, the cost is too high. If we shoot according to this script, $500,000 will not be enough." Benjamin made a simple budget. "In fact, it will cost $800,000 to $1 million. Kelly automatically ignored the $800,000 and said, "With $1 million, we can shoot at least 8 late night dramas and sell them to cable stations. Add DVDs and videotapes, and we will make a profit." It's too risky to invest so much in one movie. Benjamin tried his best. Kelly, we can't always shoot low-cost late-night dramas, right? Don't you want to enter the theaters? Don't you want the company to really grow and develop? Kelly shook her head. I've worked in Hollywood. What percentage of Hollywood movies are profitable each year? They can rely on time to recover costs and accumulate profits. What about us? If we throw in $1 million and can't get it back in half a year, our capital chain will be extremely tight. There were some things she didn't need to tell Benjamin, such as her interest in General Motors' abandoned production workshop. Benjamin said, I'm sure this script will be a success. Kelly couldn't reject the director directly because he was a meritorious director of the company. She thought for a while and said, please make a budget and a plan. I need to consider it carefully. Benjamin said, I'll try to reduce the cost. After leaving the house, he kept scratching his head. Film is an art, but it is a business after all. Going downstairs, Benjamin was ready to go home and met the casting director Lynn. The latter was wearing a baseball cap commemorating the Warriors championship and asked, how is it? Benjamin simply said, the boss asked me to make a budget and a plan. She wants to consider everything. Lynn said, there is hope. Benjamin replied casually, yes. The two separated and got into their own cars. Lynn thought for a while and dialed a number. Adam, I'll wait for you at the Black Bar in half an hour. Bring your best stuff over. Adam Smith, who had already returned home, hung up the phone, opened the secret compartment on the shelf, took out the plastic bag inside, and went out to keep the appointment. Kelly left the company and went to a nearby bar and entered a large private room with an independent bar. In the room, besides Louise and Martin, the bartender, there was Kate Winslet. Louise formally introduced Kelly and Kate. You haven't met formally before. In fact, I have known you for about the same time. I met Kelly in 1993 and Kate in 1995. Martin mixed 4 different cocktails and said to the 3 women outside across the bar, cheers to our acquaintance. The 4 people clinked their glasses. Kate Winslet took a sip of the cold and refreshing Long Island black tea. The extra ice helped to relieve her irritability over the past few days. She said, that stupid French director has a head full of shit. Please forgive me for swearing. I really can't help it. She suppressed it for a long time. Louise, if it weren't for your face, I would have made a scene long ago and bullied him to force the crew to change the director. Martin put down his glass and said, then he will cut off both sides of the French flag. Kate was overjoyed and laughed. There were piles of colorful flags in Europe, and Kelly couldn't tell which one was which. She was surprised. What does it mean? Kate explained with a smile. The French flag has the blue and red on both sides cut off, leaving only white. This is what the French are best at doing. Louise glanced at Martin. This guy's really a top-notch guy. Martin said seriously, haven't you heard that no one can occupy Paris before the French surrender? Kate raised her glass. Martin, I must toast you a glass. Martin clinked glasses with her. It's Milner. Louise still reminded, Kate, if you want to use this play to win an Oscar, you should control your temper, although he is only responsible for the filming on the set. Kate, like her long-lasting friend, is obsessed with the Oscars. I have been nominated several times and lost all of them. Kelly asked, not enough public relations investment? Kate shook her head. Those old men think I'm too young. Martin interrupted, I'm an outsider. Can I tell you what I think? Kate clinked glasses with him again. Of course. Martin thought for a while and said, the main reason is that Kate, your appearance is too outstanding, which makes it easy for people to ignore your acting skills. I have looked at the Oscar list in the past 10 years. What can I say? He slowed down his voice and emphasized, it is a game where many women participate in the selection, and only those who become ugly and psychotic can win. As soon as these words came out, the 3 women laughed at the same time. Kate Winslet took the bottle and filled the glass. Martin, what you said makes a lot of sense. I want to have a drink with you on behalf of all the beautiful women who have been targeted by the Oscars. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.